Okay, so thanks for buying this. I'm going to do my best to walk you through how to write tests and get 100% coverage, and then we'll look at Cypress. Now, fundamentally, I think the React testing library part is probably better in terms of the confidence it gives you for the code you write, but maybe I'm wrong. But the Cypress stuff is really good too. So let's get into this. Now we've written the Instagram app. Firstly, let's go ahead and create a folder in here called __tests, and you can call this whatever you like. Now, I'm going to create another folder called pages, and I'm going to be building the tests in a way that links different components, which basically means we're kind of writing, or we are writing, integration tests where we're integrating different components and different modules together. And I always find this gives me better confidence in the application, because when you're just testing singular units of code, now that's fine. I like to do that for a component library. But when I've got an actual application, I like to render the entire page and do actions on the page. So the first one we should write is login.test.js, and you can write this little extension here. So you've got 2 dots, and you can also use spec as well. But I'm going to use test. Now, before we go ahead and start writing tests, open up a terminal, because we are going to be needing this, and also your package.json. We're going to be using Jest for mocking. So whilst we have this test line here, I want you to change this to have -- coverage watch all, and that'll watch all your files, which is what we want. And then what we need to do is, for the ESLint config, we want to just come below it and write Jest. Let's move the terminal for a second. And then you want to say collect coverage from, and then you pass an array. So now you can say what you want to collect coverage from. And I want to collect coverage from basically everything, apart from the stuff that just either isn't my code or just has no meaning in terms of the logic that's being rendered, and that essentially doesn't matter. And you can use the exclamation mark to say, look, I don't want to collect coverage from this file. And then you can say root dir, which will just go into the root directory. And then source, because we are one level up. And then I don't want to collect coverage from app.js, nor the index, because we know this renders, nor the seed file, nor any of the fixtures. And you can use a wildcard here to say none of the fixtures. The next one would be any of the hooks, because we want to collect them when they're, you can actually collect them if you wish, but we're going to be collecting some of the coverage and just mocking these. And then helpers, let's put hooks there. And then the services, I'm going to mock those too. And Firebase is really tough to actually mock. So once you've done that, I like to set a coverage threshold to say, look, this is acceptable in terms of the coverage. And then if you have a pipeline like Jenkins, Travis, Team City, when it goes through the pipeline, if it's below this particular coverage, it can break the build, which is what you want, because you don't want code going through to production that hasn't been tested. So we'll say globally, I want the branches to be 90%. And just copy that. The functions to be 90%, lines to be 90%, and statements to be 90%. And to be honest, 70 to 80% is good enough. But I just want to show you how we can get high level of coverage. Coverage reporters. Now, just going back to the fact that I've put 90 there, it is fairly strict to have 90. Now, I was reading an article that 80% is around what you'd actually need in terms of coverage. The last 20% is just chasing numbers, basically. And then I've put inside the coverage threshold that I want the reporters. Actually, we don't want that in there. Let's get rid of that. Are we inside jest? Yes. Okay, we need to put this inside jest. But before we do that, let's copy these in here. Don't need that. And it should look like this. So jest with an object, and then inside a property of an array, property again, and then a property with an array. And that property just has another object. So that should be good. And then our coverage report is saying, give me the HTML and the text. And that should be good enough. We should already have React Testing Library installed because it comes with Create React app these days, which is here. And there's many ways you can test your code with different functions from Create React app. React Testing Library. So the first one we want to target is the login. Now, how do we even do this? So let's just import React. Let me zoom in. And then we want to bring in render, so we can render the component. We want to bring in fire event, and there's now user actions as well, but fire events is still my go-to. And then we'll bring all that in from Testing Library React. And just to begin, let's bring in a describe and say this is going to be the login. And then in here, an iteration of renders the login page with a form submission and logs the user in. Okay, then we can do expect 1 to equal 1, just to see if we got the test running. Now to run this, we just do yarn test. And then you see it's picked up login, and there we are. We have a nice running test. And you'll see here the coverage isn't met, which is good. And then you have the coverage in the HTML format, which I'll show you in a second, and then also this text format. So I like to have both. And if we get any errors in here, they will be alerted in the terminal, which is good. Now at this particular point, if you want to rerun the test, just click A on your keyboard, which is good. And then also W to show more options, fail tests, only run tests that related to change files, quit, P to filter. So if you wanted to filter, just click P and then just do login, and you can run that test. So I'll just quickly stop this, and then I'll show you the coverage in the HTML, and we'll keep that on the left side because that's what I kind of use to navigate around my tests. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working with. This is the coverage, and to find this, you can go into this main folder, but you'd have to reveal it in Finder. Then you should have a folder called coverage. And yeah, that's basically it. It'll be in there. Just do a quick search for it. It's in here, Finder. Doesn't show it in VS Code for some reason. I'm not too sure why, but you can see here the location. So Instagram with tests / coverage. So it'll be directly in here. Right, so what did we just do? Well, we rendered out and set up, we rendered out the login. Well, we didn't, but we just basically did an expect a value 1 to equal 1. Now, the page we want to be working on is going to be login. So you can see here, and this is how I do my tests. I can see this stuff has not been covered simply because it's not been rendered out. This hasn't been set, this hasn't been set. So there's a bunch of stuff. Basically, we need to render it out and see what sort of actions we need to take. So to begin, I'll keep this open on the left side because I think it's valuable. The first thing is, get rid of that. And we need to create, what I can see here is there's a bunch of modules, and these are not going to work perfectly because we don't want to be hitting those services. So if we don't want to hit those services, because each time if they run and you're hitting these services, it's going to not only cost you for your server bills, but it's also inefficient, and you want to mock the data to see what we get back. So the first one I'm going to mock is use history. So to do this, I'll do mock history push and jest.function. Jest.function is just like a default mock. It'll allow us to just extend off this. And the default mock in general is jest.mock, but to do This here, it means that we can use it inside jest.mock and then we can apply it. So this one's a little tricky because what we want to do is React router DOM, we want to mock that. And you'll see this pattern often where you just bring in jest.mock like this. And then I want everything basically apart from use history. So you can require actual and say, look, I want you to mock this module and everything will be mocked, but then I'm going to require the actual, which will bring it back to its normal state. Then after that, I'm going to mock just use history. And the reason we do that is because we want stuff like the link to be able to be clicked, and then we can expect it to be going to another page or whatever it may be. So let's see here. And also a little trick here is you'll notice with testing, you generally do wrap your objects like this. And you'll find yourself doing that a lot when you're writing unit tests or integration tests, just like I did there. So push, now what does push equal? Because you can see history.push. So I'm mocking use history, which will be, let's zoom in here. Use history, so if we search for use history, we're defining it here. So when this actually gets defined into history and assigned into history, it'll basically just have push. Now, do I want the real push? No, because it will blow up this particular test and it won't work. So what I do is I just pass in the mock history, and it basically is a fake it's basically like a fake variable that you can check and apply certain values to, as opposed to using the real one. Because you don't want the history to be doing all this stuff whilst you're trying to conduct a test. So let's see. It's better to actually show this. So now let's run this test. So let's just do a yarn test. It's going to do pretty much nothing. So what you actually want to do is we want to render this out. And this is where it's going to get fun, because you'll see all the errors, and then it's just a case of fixing all the errors to get your page in a working state. So we'll bring in pages login. So we're bringing the pages component, and then what you can do here is you can destructure out certain values that you want. Now I want to test by get by test ID, get by placeholder text for the input fields, query by test ID, just to make sure it's actually there. Now, if you go ahead and just render out this component, let's see what happens. There we go, a bunch of errors, right? A bunch of errors, look. Firebase cannot be mocked, and it would be used, but the history would be the same if we didn't do that. So we do have to take care of Firebase as well. But here you'll see these, actually, you know what? Let me just show you here. React Testing Library cheat sheet. So I recommend having this up as well. And in this grid here, you can see get by. So what happens if there's no match? Well, it's going to throw an error. Query by doesn't. Now, is this asynchronous? No, it's not. Is query by? No, it's not. Find by is. So basically, get by, you can say get by anything. Get by label, get by placeholder, get by title, get by text, get by display value. And you'll see there's iterations for each one. So you can basically choose how you want to go ahead and get these. You can also have stuff like wait for, which is a promise. Retry the function until it stops throwing or times out. Certain events, fire event. Act, wrapper around test utils, which wraps and renders fire events, and like it's basically in asynchronous nature. But you can see there's a ton of stuff. So I recommend having this open when you're writing tests until you get used to all the functions that it gives you. But let's go ahead and use these three. So with the login, you'll notice that when we had this page, we have the app.source. The app.source has the user context, but above that, you have the Firebase context. So when we're rendering out this login page, there's a bunch of stuff that we need to hook into essentially. And one of those things is we do need Firebase. So Firebase context, we import Firebase context. And what do we do with it? let's have a look. We'll search in here. We use the context. Now there's multiple ways to do this, and use context is tricky as well to actually go ahead and mock. Likewise with hooks. So the way I like to do it is just basically wrap it in the context. And if you used Apollo, which is like an extension on GraphQL, and it helps you plug in, you can have the Apollo client, the Apollo server. They do this particular method as well, where they just wrap, let's say prior to them having hooks, they would just wrap their components to test like this. So anyways, now we've got Firebase context. Well, what does that mean? It means we have to pull in the Firebase context. So let's go ahead and do that. Import Firebase context from context Firebase. And now we can use it here. Now Firebase doesn't exist, so obviously this is going to be thrown in error, but you can see, look, we caught it already. It's not defined. So what do we want to do with Firebase? Well, one of the things that I could potentially do is, firstly, where does it get used? Like, where does it get used here? You'll see it gets used here. So now when we run this test, it's expecting auth, it's expecting sign in with email and password. So what we basically need to do is just rebuild that. So how do we rebuild that? Well, let's just say const Firebase, and we can pass auth just as a general object, and then we want to mock everything inside there. And to do that, we just basically replicate sign in with email and password. And what you can actually do is jest.function, because it's going to return a promise, you can resolve a promise. Promise.resolve, I am signed in, which basically is saying, look, the user signed in. So let's see what happens now. And we can see what coverage we actually get here. You shouldn't use link outside. Interesting. So we have hit the Firebase, the React DOM error in this case. So how do you fix this? Well, if you look online, the best way to fix this also is to wrap your code in a router, because you have a link inside the login and it needs to have a router to be able to be used. So that requires us to bring in the router. So we can bring in browser router as router from React router DOM. There we are. Boom, there we go. So let's pull this across. So when I do a refresh now, we'll see if like this highlight has gone and this highlight has gone. There we go, perfect. You can see now 52%, so it started rendering the page, and you can see here how many times it renders. The error doesn't get called because we don't have an error, so we need to get a scenario for the error. The change doesn't get called because we don't type into the box. But you can see how it renders some of the page. So we're in a good position. So what we can actually do here is, now we've got the login, we can start doing some user actions. So the first one I want to do is, let's say fire event.change get by placeholder text. And what's the placeholder text here? Email address. So let's just use that. And once we have that, we can say target. So the target, I want to set it to value carl@gmail.com. So let's see if we get an email address change, and pull up that. And there we are. We get an email address change. So that's good. Now what's the next one? What's the password? So let's get the password. So email address would be password there, and we'll put this value to, let's see, test password. And let's see if we get coverage. Yes, we do. So it's that simple. That's pretty much how we test. We just basically look for various different details within the page and simulate user actions. So we can do document. Also, we can actually test the title here because we're using use effects. So let's just test that we get the correct title. Login. Document.title to equal login Instagram. And does that work? Yes, it does. So even though you got coverage on this, you still want to make sure it's the one you expect. Right, so we also need to test that a particular function has been called, as in, did this get called when the user action was going on? So what we can do, we can move this promise.resolve, we can stick it just above and say succeeded to log in. And then just place it here, like so. So now what I want to test is when this has been changed, we want to fire an event, so we can say fire event.submit get by test ID login. Now, do we have a login test ID? No, we do not. So what we actually need to do is go to the login.js page, and we can apply a test ID. Let's see. So whilst we're actually in here, let's apply one to the error state. So whilst we're testing this, let's put one here, error. So we can test the error, and then we can also test that we have a form data test ID equals login, and then the last one would be on the button. We can use these not only in React Testing library, but we can use them in Cypress as well. Login. There we go. So let's just double check that we have the test ID login. Yes, we do. The next thing we need to do is, let's see if the form gets fired. Found multiple elements by test ID login. Interesting. Okay. So let's just go back to that. Login. Oh, we've got two. Okay, so yeah, data test ID. Oh, actually, that's wrong. That should be sign up. Yeah, I thought that one was tricky. So save that. Let's rerun the test and you'll get instant feedback. There we go. Perfect. And what did we get on the coverage? Well, we are nearly there. We're at 84%. So we can test various different scenarios, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to keep these all together because we know this is kind of like an action that is being taken. The next thing is we do want to test that upon that button being submitted for the form, we want to test that expect succeeded to log in to have been called. So as that says here, to have been called, and shows that a mock function is called, which basically means, did a user click the login and did we attempt to make this call to this function? And if so, was it successful? And then you can actually test what it's been called with. So let's just pull up the terminal, that one passed, and we can just test this to be, let's put a wrong email, carl@gmail.com, test password. Perfect, so you can see it expected, but I received. So we just change this by removing the two, and that just stop function should pass. Great. And now one thing you want to do here is we can actually test this mock history push. So upon successful login, what happened? So let's do expect to have been called with, and you know what, we can actually pull in the routes. So the routes will actually allow us, let's go here, to use the value in here for the login, so we know it's consistent with whatever gets changed throughout the application. So you can say routes.login. And now let's see what we get there. Expected has type string, expected has value login. Interesting. So why are we running into this scenario where the matcher must not have an expected argument? So expected has type string value. Well, one of the reasons this actually happens is because it's firing and it's kind of taking us to a new destination, which would be login. But where are we actually going? Well, we're going to the dashboard, remember? The dashboard was the one that actually, upon sign up and login, it takes us, but we still have an error. So how do we fix this? You see this? Should be to be called with. Now let's see if we get a passing test. Interesting, so it didn't get called. And the reason for this is because we have to use something called at, which essentially says, look, there's a lot of asynchronous stuff going on here. The page is going to be updating. There's going to be asynchronous calls happening. I want everything to basically finish, or at least keep track of what's going on the page so that I can then do my expectations. So if we go ahead and make this iteration here, firstly async, and then here, let's do everything in here. So await at, then async. Let's see. And I just wrap everything here. And then you'll see you're getting a little squiggly of act. Now act has to be brought in from input act from React DOM test utils. So there we are, expected, received. Okay, that's fine. So why are we getting that? Well, we have to await the asynchronous fire event. And if you await these, you should get an update in terms of the values. Good, so that's passing. So now we get this by the test ID, which is to submit the form. The next thing that I'd want to do in this particular scenario is I want to await after the button's been fired again. So I want to wait for an update. So I'm going to use await for, then I want to put it in here. So once it's been fired, I want to make sure all this stuff's been called, and I want to wait for the final updates, which is the history, which is the movement to the next page. And you can check, I mean, we have done to be called with here for the succeeded to log in, but we can also check that get by placeholder text, email address, dot value, to be carl@gmail.com. And let's see here, just make sure these are all correct. So get by placeholder, we have this to be, it should be here. Interesting. 1, 2, 3. Oh, there we go, that's right. Yeah, I was miscounting the brackets. So then we can test for the password, and the password was test password. And then what we can check, we just say, look, query by test ID. And the reason I'm using query by test ID is because if it doesn't find this, it's going to throw an error. So that's why I use query and not get by in this particular case. So we want to check that the error is falsy. And hopefully we have a passing iteration. Perfect. And there we are. So now what we have to test here is the catch scenario where we run into an error. And we also want to get the error on the page, and then we can get to 100% on statements and not just functions. So how do we do this? Well, firstly, what I actually like to do prior to moving to a next iteration is call before each. And I want to say before each, I want to clear all the mocks, put everything back to normal, because I don't want the data that I've been mocking in there. So the next one would be, and by the way, feel free to just copy and paste these tests on like each describe, because the thing is, Like if I just zoom out here, I'll zoom right out. This bit, where are we? There we go. It takes a lot of time to go ahead and rewrite all this stuff, and you won't be wanting to do this, at your workplace, and believe me, it gets very tedious. So just go in there, paste the test, and then what I like to do, I like to firstly start out by saying this renders a login page with a form submission and fails to log in the user. Now, then I like to go through line by line and just say, okay, well, what's going to be different here? So fail to log in, cannot sign in, and then I'll just basically do the unhappy path, which is if stuff goes wrong. So I'm going to just keep going down. This looks all good. We want to render this stuff out. Firebase is going to be the same, but it's going to have a promise dot reject. So we'll throw an error here. And then we go even further down. We can see we've got two references that have changed. So we want to change that. We are going to go ahead with the same details. Pretty much the same details. But I know that one of the ways to throw an error in Firebase is to send in a bad value. So I'm going to send in a non-email address. Even though we are mocking it and it's still going to reject, but I just want to portray to people reading this that that's how it would be. So await for, here it's not going to get called with the routes.dashboard because it's not going to do a redirect because it's a bad value. And then I expect, like here on the left side, set email address password back to normal, which is basically an empty string, as you can see here. So that's what it's going to be. And now this is not going to be truthy. So let's run it and you'll see we should have an error. There we are. So expected received, call.com, which is good. Now, do we actually want to do a validation check against this? Yeah, I guess so, we can do. But let's just make sure that, let's see. Here we go. So what's the error? Expected to be falsy. Well, we expect it to be truthy, right? Because there's an error. So just switch it to truthy. And then, ta-da! 100% coverage. And that's basically how you write a test. A happy path and a sad path. And just do user actions in between. So there you are. Great job. That's the first one. The next one I want to look at is something very similar, which is a sign-up page. So again, we can reuse a lot of this logic because the pages are similar, put it into the sign-up and just change what we need. And yeah, that's how I write my test basically. And if you're doing freelance work, you'll find that writing tests takes, COVID wait. Yeah, basically, what you'll find with freelance projects, you don't get much time to write tests, or even if you do get time, you don't really get paid for them. So if you do write some tests, just copy and paste your logic. It's much quicker. Okay, so let's do the not found page. So if we just click into this for the coverage, fairly simple one, but I want to test a few different scenarios. And also, let's do this one from scratch, because I know we have somewhat been cheating by doing some copy and paste, but it's good to get that muscle memory whilst you're writing these tests. So immediately I know I need render in here from React testing, what's it called? Yeah, testing library. And then next, what I actually need is, let's just make that bit big, well, this window just a bit bigger, specifically the page, so we can see what we're actually using in here and how we test. We have the header in here, which comes from components, header. Interesting, so we've got a lot of use context and Firebase. We have React Router DOM again. So what you could do is, let's pull in the context. We know we need the user context, so let's grab that too. We could use the routes, but then again, we're not being, actually we are redirecting. No, we're not redirecting, we're only landing on this page. What else? Well, we definitely need the not found page from pages, not found. Then here, just make sure you've got double dots to say, look, it's 2 folders up. And then we need Firebase in here. So let's just mock it right at the top. Nice and simple. We can just mock Firebase right at the top. Jest.function. That returns an object. Create user with... Actually, do we even need... There's nothing that's going on in here. I don't think we need this. So we just say, yep, describe, give me the not found. We'll soon find out if we've got any errors. It renders the not found page with a logged in user. Perfect. So that tells me we definitely need to mock user context because we need that user object. Just say get by text here. There's not much that's changing on the page. It's just a case of we want to actually test a bunch of stuff. And we need the router because we are, I believe we've got link in the header, which, yep, there it is. So we need that. So we definitely need to wrap it. Firebase context dot provider value, and for Firebase we could potentially just pass. Let's just pass nothing and see what happens actually. And then user context, let's go ahead and pass that. User context dot provider. And then within the user context, what do you think we should do now? Just render the not found page. Router has to come in as browser router. Let's just steal that from the sign up, so we'd have to retype that again. There we are. Let's just see what errors we get. It'll most likely say you need a test. Context, did you misspell it? Did I misspell something? The value prop, provider. So let's just say with a logged in user, what could we put for this? UID equals 1. Whoa, it renders, perfect, 100%, that's it, let's call it a day. Thanks for watching, I'll see you. I'm just kidding, there's a few bits more to do here. But it's good that we can just pass Firebase because there's not too much going on. There's no like calls being made in terms of like service calls. So we can just mock that, that should be fine. So what do we actually have to test for in this scenario? Well, there's not that much to test for. If we look here, we've got not found and a not found title. So, I mean, we do have the header, but does it really matter? Let's just have a look what we have. You can use debug here, call debug, and then you can see what text is on the within the document that we are login. So let's just go ahead and let's just expect get by text login to be there. With a logged in user. So apparently that's not a logged in user. Now why would we not have a logged in user there? I guess you'd expect a logged in user at least to be there. Now why wouldn't we have a logged in user? It should say sign out. Maybe because the user, let's have a look in the header. What's it checking for? Logged in user. What you could always do here as well. What's it checking for here? There must be a user check, right? Is it checking for a user? Yeah, it's checking for user. Let's see if we have a logged in user. So when this runs, yes, so it should then go get use user, which use user. I wonder what that comes back as. Undefined. Okay, so I imagine this use user hook goes in here and get user by UID. Okay, let's pull this in and we can mock this. I think did we use this before, or at least mock this before? Let's just get rid of these, get rid of the debug, and it should return as if there's a user ID. Do we have a user ID though? Yes, we do. We're passing that in. So that must go down here, which is the UID. So it's definitely being called. We can just double check it comes in here. Let's see. Yes. Okay, that's good. Let's just mock this here then. And I think we have the sign up where we did it. Sign up in the test. So we mocked the services, so let's just do that. We'll mock that particular service. And does username exist? We could just directly mock that implementation, I guess. And let's just return a user here. Get user by UID, mock implementation, and we'll resolve user, username, call, and maybe we get some data. Uh-oh, so it doesn't seem to like that. Let's just get rid of that promise a second. Oops. So that's interesting that we'd get to a point where, let's see here. What did I have on my notes for potentially? What we might need to do here is give it a fixture, like a return. So what we could do, we could get a user fixture. So if we come in here, now we've got tests. Let's go ahead and create a new folder called fixtures. And within fixtures, let's just give a default of a logged in user. Well, not default, an export default. Let's just mock a logged in user because we're going to be reusing it. And you can pull all this data from Firebase. Now I'm just going to go into Firebase, 1 second. Export or you can get this from the seed file actually if you wish. If you go to the seed file, there we go, we've got the data. Just change the date created. And then you'll have this logged in user fixture. And we can basically import this within here. So import, what was it called? We'll call it user fixture from fixtures logged in user. And then let's just try. I'm just thinking if we return this value, it's going to come, let's have a look. So that's going to most likely come back as an array. So when we mock the implementation here, let's just dump this in here. It works. I think it works. And just to double check that it works, what do we get out of here? So this is the most interesting one because we need to make sure that particular value undefined. Interesting. Oh, it's in an act. Okay. Okay, let's put this async and then await act. So we need to bring in act. So act comes from, I think we got it in here. Yep, so sign up, grab it from sign up, paste it into the not found. So let's say await act. I can just bring everything in here. That should be enough. Now, is this going to solve it? I'm not too sure, but we need to just double check that when we're doing this mock implementation, we are actually, let's get rid of the debug. We don't need that either. I'll rerun this test. An update to header inside a test was not wrapped in act. When testing, code that causes React state dish. What? It is wrapped in act. What's it talking about? It is wrapped in act though, and it is bringing back the user. Look, the user's coming back. Now, why is it saying that's not wrapped? Did I async that? Oh, my bad. I'm just sticking a weight on that. And we get the user, which is good. Now, let me debug this. Let's see if we get an actual user in the DOM. And then the user comes back. So what I suspect we need to do now is, do you know how we use wait for? So we'll set a wait for, expect, let's do a debug. What's this complaint that is not defined? Oh, do we have to bring in wait for as well? Did I not bring that in? Okay. Let's see if we get the debug in the wait for. Okay, so let me just check. The debug's here. So let's just see what we get in the DOM. Expect. Let's see if. So what do we have in the header? Because I know this is coming through. Because it's showing us in the console.log. Oh, there's not really much we can even test in here. Let's set a wait query by text to be falsy. Let's pull this in here. Well, it works. Let's see if that is falsy. Well, obviously it's going to be falsy. What am I talking about? Hold up. So we want that to be falsy. Now let's just see if it does exist. After the render's done and we've got that information back and all the asynchronous stuff's gone. Let's see if that exists. Received null. Okay. There we are, we're logged in. So, yeah, we don't have it. Perfect. So what do we actually have? Well, we don't really have anything that we can test in terms of text. This person not found. Say login to be falsy, because we know that's going to be falsy. And then we can double check just for not found. Is that what we defined in the document? Yeah, not found. Let's get an exclamation mark on there. The test is going to fail. I like to just check that it fails first. There we are, it's failed because it has received it. So let's just put to be truthy. Should pass. There we go. And let's get rid of the console.logs that we were doing in here. Just make sure there's no other ones that are laying around. Okay. And the next one, we just basically check if the user is not logged in and that the not found page works with a anonymous user. So we don't need debug, so we can go up top and get rid of that too. And what we're passing as a user, empty object. And then in here, empty. Hopefully this one works. Uh-oh. That's because login should now be truthy. Get rid of that. Boom, there we go. It worked, we got there. So yeah, that was nice. We got to, you see how you could render one page, but then it would have a component. And then within that component, it could do a service call, like an asynchronous call. But unless you know the code, it's hard to be aware of this. So that's why the feedback from Jest in the terminal is really good. It's like, hey, look, get user by user ID is doing X, but you're expecting Y. Then also just testing different scenarios, like does the user exist? Is certain text on the page found? Then awaiting the asynchronous actions to finish, and then you can actually do your assertions on stuff that you expect. So cool, that's it, the not found page. Let's take a look at where we currently stand. Not found is 100%. So basically we've got dashboard, which is going to be a big one because it's got all these components, and these components are making a bunch of different calls and actions. Likewise with the profile, that's going to be a big one too. So once we've got them done, just look how we are for statements and branches and functions and lines already. Yeah, it's looking solid. So yeah, let's continue on. Make sure you got this nice fixture. Just to recap, you can take a look at that one there. We have 3 tests. We're aiming for 5. That should cover all pages. Nicely intertwined, so we're testing the integration of components that are using or being used by another component or a page. So yeah, really good stuff. Well done, and let's continue on. Basically, let's decide. Let's see which one we should go for next. So I'm thinking we do the dashboard next. Seems the one with they've both got quite a bit of complexity, but I think if we target the dashboard, we can start hitting some of these other use cases. Like logged in user, we can get coverage on that by writing tests for the dashboard. Firebase. I don't think we actually need to check for coverage on this, to be honest. I think, did we not exclude this in the package.json? Services. Okay. Make sure we exclude this, and then it should be enough for it to rerun. Actually, when you exclude something or you just make a modification to the package.json, make sure you just restart your test runner. There we go. Right, so let's go ahead and do dashboard. We're going for the dashboard. Right, so it's going to be a big one. So let's do dashboard.test.js. And we need to bring in React. There we go, it took its time. I can't wait to switch out this Mac, it's so slow. And then I should hopefully be able to speed videos up. Before each, the usual stuff, just.clear mocks. Up here, there's a few things that I know I'm going to need, right? Because we're doing some asynchronous rendering. So I'm going to bring in wait for, I'm going to bring in fire event because I want to click on certain things like the sidebar, follow people. And that should be enough from React Testing library. What else? I'm trying to think if we actually need the router in. Oh, we do need the router. That's obvious because it's being wrapped at the top level. If not, it would give us some trouble. So let's just do that. React router DOM. I'm going to bring in act because that is going to allow us to wrap our code in, and then we can do async await for certain asynchronous operations that have been handled. What else? Test utils. I'm trying to think. Obviously the dashboard. Let's see. Just double check. There we are. So yeah, the dashboard. Input user context. We're going to need that because you can see we've got a logged in context, but the header, I believe, which is being used here. From the dashboard, user context is being used. So we're going to have to bring in the user context. User context, and of course Firebase is going to be used as well. So we'll bring that into user, and then Firebase context. Logged in user context because it's being used there, so we need that. logged in user context. And by the way, I'm just saving you the trouble here of getting all the errors up front by just bringing in the stuff that you actually will need, because even though you did write this with me, I've recorded this series, and let's say it's 10 hours, 3 times. So I have 30 hours of experience on this, and I understand certain elements that we have to do, such as pulling in these stuff that's used within the components. I'm not saying, oh yeah, I understand testing better than you. What I'm saying is, because I have to teach this to you, right? I just understand the flow of the website better, in terms of I know that there's a component or there's context over in the header. Like in here, I've written this 3 times. This will be the 3rd time. So I do understand that there's certain elements, such as like user context, Firebase context, that's within here. And within a test, it's going to just error. So I'm just going to save you the trouble of doing that. But I want you to go ahead and try test some other things on this. And by doing so, you should run into some errors. And those errors essentially help you with your test, because it's saying, hey, look, we don't have this, we don't have that. So, and we can reuse some stuff as well. Like, always reuse stuff from your tests, because you just end up rewriting it. Like here, mock history push. We know we need that. And why do we need it? Well, let's have a look. We have the timeline. We have the sidebar. There's some links going on. Actually, do we even need this? I think we do. Now, I've just stated, oh yeah, I'm really good and I understand this. I've recorded it 3 times. Maybe we don't even need this. So anyways, I know we need to mock Firebase because we're using the Firebase context. So let's just give it a default mock, just.mock. I think it's services, Firebase, yeah, Firebase. The next one would be, I want to mock the use user. Yeah, let's mock that custom hook. Hooks user. Oops. And it's use user, yeah, it's use user. There we are. So what do we want to do? I'm just looking. So we want to we want to render the dashboard, and maybe we do like an action, because on the sidebar there's going to be suggested profiles. So how about we render this entire thing? We fire an action to follow a suggested profile. Yeah, I think that would be good. Now, in timeline, we're going to be getting the photos. In the sidebar, we're going to be getting the suggested profile. So that's 2 service calls. And then we have to mock the user implementation, which use... I believe this gets used in the header, which, yeah, logged in user. So we can mock, well, we can provide some information for that. So we're going to need the user fixture, and I think we used that in the not found. Yeah, so let's just grab that, bring it in here. Nothing's run yet because we haven't done anything. So let's say it renders the dashboard with a user profile and follows a user from the suggested profile sidebar. Okay, so then we'll set a wait, and this has to be asynchronous. Let's make it an async test. Async act, async. Bring this down a little bit, and we'll say get photos dot mock implementation, because we don't want it to go to Firebase, right? Mock implementation, and we'll provide it with a photos fixture. We don't have that yet, but you can see in the timeline, we're using use photos, right? So I've given you 2 different ways to do this, where I've mocked the hook and I'm mocking the service. Now, within use user, I'm just mocking this essentially, the entire thing. I'm just saying, okay, the output's going to be X. Whereas you could have just mocked get user by object ID, but then you'd have to mock get user by user ID. So, sorry, no, all you'd have to do here is just mock get user by user ID, and then you can basically, if you mock this function, just return a user, and then it'll set the active user and it'll run through the hook. But we've already pretty much done this. I don't know, there's too many implementation details going on here, as in testing hooks. It's, it's not bad. Would I mock hooks? Yeah. It's sometimes I mock them, sometimes I don't. So, but I'm going to show you all the ways, so it's fine. Okay, so we need a fixture. So where can we get a fixture? So firstly, I want you to grab this actually off the GitHub repo because it's a big file. And the way I got this fixture was, by the way, just create this new file called timeline photos in the fixtures folder. But the way I got this file is I just went to where we use get photos or use photos, which is in the timeline. And I just console.logged this into a JSON.stringify. And then I came in here and just pasted it in. And it just has all the user photos for the people I follow. In this case, it was Raphael. So then I just basically save it, and that's it. There's the fixture. And it's real Firebase data, but it's just saved in a fixture, which is essentially just a blank file, and that's it. So once we get the photos, we need to bring in get photos so that we can actually mock this. Now, how would you do this? Like, we've done a few tests now. Just give yourself a second to think how we'd actually do this. So if you want to mock something, what's the first thing you actually need to do? The answer, obviously, is to import it. Now, the real implementation will come in immediately. But what's good is we can just mock the implementation as soon as it comes in. Oops. What was that? Strange. It's the Mac keyboard. So yeah, we brought in the user fixture. Ooh, let's see. Yeah, user fixture. So let's go ahead and import get photos from services Firebase. And then you can come down here, the photos fixture. We can import this. So import your photos fixture from fixtures, timeline photos. And then we can just provide it here, like we have. And that should be more than enough. Now we need the suggested profiles too, which is also going to be a fixture. But before we do that, let's go ahead and mock. Let's leave a comment just to say, need the suggested profiles fixture. We can use user.mock implementation, and we can provide a user. And we'll just give this a user of user fixture. Now use user, we need to bring that in from hooks, and there we go. So the next one is we need the suggested profiles fixture. Now again, this is on the GitHub repo because it's just, I don't know, it's a fairly big fixture, and well, actually no, it's not. Let's just use one because, generally speaking, you're only going to show a few of them. So let's come in here and call this suggested profiles.js. And you could just do export default, and then you could get one from the seed file. DALI, let's just grab this guy, and we'll just provide one, even though it's an array here. There's no followers apart from myself. Maybe we just don't provide any followers, so then we can add and remove, and it'll make it easier. DALI, user ID free, email address is fine, date created. Just put that to any random like integer, so you could just do like something like this or something like that, which is a real number, which will be converted into a date. So that's just basically a Unix epoch that you can convert. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and get that fixture now. I'm just going to put these fixtures next to each other. Suggested profiles fixture. Suggested profiles. Yep. Let's bring that in. So how we're going to use the suggested profiles, what actually gets called, Well, let's have a look. Get suggested profiles. There we go. So we need to mock this. And to mock this, we'll just bring it in here. And then we come down here and do the same thing. And then what we do, we just provide the fixture. There we go. It's that simple. So let's go ahead and render this now. We do need Firebase in here before we can actually start rendering. Let's have a look. So let's just do const get by text. Just for now, I like to just keep it simple to begin with and get by text. Firebase context.provider. User context, because that's being used in here. .provider. What else? Logged in user context. So basically, when you got all these context React elements within your app and they're being used within your components, the best way to just get these tested is just to wrap everything in them. We know Firebase is at the top in the index.js. We know the user context sits within the header, and also logged in user context is in here. So basically, you could. It really doesn't matter in this case. They're both going to provide us with the same element. Well, the same structure and in terms of what data we want. The user context, we know, actually the user context sits higher up because that's in app.js. Let's just get rid of that. I'll just make this a bit cleaner because I didn't do the logged in user context correct. Logged in user context.provider. And now we just need to render out the dashboard. Now the dashboard is an interesting one because we don't exactly just take empty props, because when someone signs up or logs in, we pass. What do we pass? Let's go have a look. In helpers, you can see we clone the element and pass down the user. So we need a user. Now the user is just a basic user coming from the auth service. The auth service gives us a UID and a display name. So we can pass user and we'll say UID equals, I'll get my UID from Firebase, which is this. You can feel free to use mine here. Display name, Carl. So that's pretty good. Now the logged in user context is a bit different because that's the one where we get all the information from the collection of users. So let's go ahead and get this. We'll say value, user fixture. And that user fixture is very important because that's the one, fixtures, which is basically all the stuff from Firebase. And you can see we're following, what follows we have, the full name, all the good stuff that we need. Now, the user context is pretty much just this again. So I know we've wrapped it twice, but we have reasons for wrapping, having this information twice. Now we could merge this information, just use it in the user context. But I do like passing the active user in the dashboard because then we can pass it to each page as opposed to calling that hook all the time and consuming it and making updates. I think there's optimizations to be made here, but I wouldn't worry about them just yet. So let's just go ahead and actually for the value, did we not pass value? Oh, value, there we go. You'll see the slight differences here where the dashboard passes a prop, and here in the provider, pass the value. So slight differences, but nevertheless, pretty much the same. Now the Firebase stuff is going to be interesting because I wonder, we did have something on the sign up, didn't we, for Firebase? Yes, this. So let's take this. So we're in signup.test, and I'm just going to grab the Firebase object. It just saves rewriting everything in Firebase. And now I can Take a look. What do I need from Firebase, right? Well, it goes Firebase collection.doc. So if we look in services, we should have maybe so we have doc. Yeah, here we go. Look, collection.doc. And we want to update, so we're just going to follow this with Firebase collection doc update. So right here we used add before. Let's use doc. And then we can just get rid of this promise for now. And then in here we can just say update jest.function. And just like we did before, we can just return the promise. And there we go. And in this particular scenario, we don't need auth whatsoever. And now we can just pass this Firebase object to the provider, which we have the Firestore. So let's just pass that in and we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get a few errors. Boom, we get a lot of errors. Okay, so generally when you see all this stuff, like a ton of errors, what's happening is it's trying to call the actual services, or you haven't, in this case, like wrapped React router. So you'll see here, we're not doing anything with the router. So let's bring in the router. And we'll just hit save and we'll see what the next error is. And we'll just keep fixing these errors. And this, my friends, is testing. This is pretty much it. It's not fun. Cannot read property, display name of undefined. Okay. So we'll have to deal with that. And there's a bunch of different errors in here, but let's just start bottom up. Can I get UID? Okay, so something's happening where it can't get the user object. Now that's concerning. So we've passed the dashboard. Well, we're rendering the dashboard page. We passed the user. We passed the UID as well. The UID looks fine. Display name looks fine. So I don't think it's here. So if we just go up a bit further, logged in user context seems fine. Here looks like the issue, right? Because you see, user context actually does destructure a user object, but we don't have a user object here. So let's try to change this and just wrap it in an object and see what happens. Here we go, good. Okay, so profile doc ID is marked as required in suggested profile, but its value is undefined. So for this particular scenario, suggested profile, profile.doc ID, I'm going to take all these is required off because on the first render, if not, it's going to complain. So I'll get rid of that. Here we go. Check the render method of suggestions. So maybe that was right actually, because we do have a doc ID there. So suggested user profiles is now clicking in my head to say, maybe what you've done here for suggested user profiles isn't correct. Let me see. That, I mean, it's a possibility. It's definitely a possibility that we haven't done the correct one there. But also, have we gone about this Firebase scenario correctly? Because if you just pass Firebase, let's just pass Firebase as an object. That should be called Firebase, because if I just did this, it should just take me back to just Firebase. There you are. So there's definitely an error, but the user, so get suggested profiles fixture. I wonder what we get from that. I mean, suggested profile seems fine. Do we need to bring in React Router and mock everything apart from use history? Let's see. No. So the suggested profiles, it's not getting the suggested profiles. Now I wonder why. So let's pull up the left side and just see. So it's rendering everything 100%, but we're getting errors and that's not good. So right here where it's getting suggested profile, we basically go to it, and some of my testing methods may be a little different for certain people. But what I actually like to do is check that we get the profiles. So when it's coming back here, what sort of response is it getting from get suggested profiles? So in the test, we mock the implementation. And I think that looks fine. Suggested profiles fixture. So the only thing you can actually do, we definitely have profiles to some extent because the dot length is greater than 0. But what sort of data do we have in there? Let's find out. Oh, so we do have DALL-E, but what's interesting is he doesn't have a document ID. Oh, okay, so we definitely need to get the document ID in here. So what's a document ID I could just use? Is DALL-E, let me grab DALL-E's off Firebase. I'll just grab it. There we go. Suggested profile, fixtures. I think this will work. So that's good. That actually told us that. Now, did I make any more modifications in here? No, I didn't. Suggested profile, that's in there. Let's stick those back on, by the way. Suggested profile, so component sidebar suggested profile. Go and do the prop types in there and just see if everything's okay. There we are, we have a passing test. That's good. So it took a while to get there, but this one's really, really tricky to do. So there's a lot that's going on here. There's a lot that's going on. So even though we've got it rendering, now it's time to start doing assertions. So what can we actually test for here? So we want to follow a user, and then we want to follow a user from the suggested profiles in the sidebar. So to do that, I'd like to click on a user's profile, as in the follow button, potentially even toggle a like. I wonder if that makes sense. Yeah, let's toggle a like on the dashboard. I think that'd be good to do. But that would require some trickiness because you can't just toggle a like on a data test ID, or not even a data test ID, but you can't just toggle a like on, say, get me the like icon or get me by text this. Because if you say get by text like, there could be 10 images and then it would get all 10. And that's not what you want to do. So I feel like we need to provide a unique doc ID as like a data test ID. Does that make sense? Let's just see first. Let's see how it goes. Because I think that will work. I think that was probably the best way to go about it, but it may not make sense whilst we're just, talking about it right now. So let's go ahead and do it. So where are we in this particular file? Here. So I'm going to do an await for here. And the first thing I want to check, just to make sure everything's fine, is document.title to equal, I think in this case it's just Instagram, which it says here. Yeah, just Instagram. So let's just make sure that works. And now, because we're logged in, we would expect to see sign out. So we can test for sign out. So header, sign out. So you see here, we can get this text by title. So let's go ahead and do that. And how would you do that now, right? Get by text or get by title. So easy with React Testing Library. So get by title, sign out to be truthy. And then let's aim for the next one. We know Raphael's going to be there because on that photos fixture, it's all Raphael in there. So let's just do get all by text, because you can't just say get by text Raphael because there's going to be multiple instances. So we need to use get all by text. And then we do Raphael, which will go here. So we definitely need to use fire event as well. Let's check for the Instagram logo as well, which is in the header. Is it called Instagram? Yeah, we have an alt tag of Instagram, so let's go ahead and use that. That'd be interesting. So get by alt tag. Alt tag, text, alt text. Instagram to be truthy. And we can just say Instagram logo. Then for the alt text, we know we have the avatar as well. Avatar, profile picture. And the alt we use here is profile. So let's go ahead and use that. And because it's my profile, it should, I think, say Carl profile. Carl profile, that'll do. I wonder if it will be there multiple times though. Oh, I know for sure Instagram's going to be there multiple times. How many times does that appear in here? One. Oh no, just once. All right, let's just see if that works then. We're not using get by text just yet. I don't even know if we would actually. Yeah, maybe we can. We can potentially use that. So that seemed to work. And just to double check that stuff isn't botched. Just put some random text in there to make sure it fails. Boom! It didn't find it. Perfect. Okay, so the next thing. We know the image sent George and the dragon is going to be there, but it's going to be there multiple times because in the photos fixture, sent George and the dragon is in there 5 times. So what we want to do here is, let's just go grab that actually. Sent George and the dragon, put it in there, and we want that to be true for. The next one would be expect get by text. Let's go ahead and finally use that. Suggestions for you. And where does that live? Lives in the dashboard. And the sidebar, which is suggestions right here. So let's make sure we test for that too. And just set it to be true for. And now let's go ahead and start clicking around on the timeline. So fire event.click. Get by text, follow, because there's only one profile, so we know we can immediately target that one. Now what I want to do here is .click, get by test ID, like photo, and we need to bring in get by test ID, get by test ID, and we want to go ahead and change the actions file, because that's where we do all the liking of the photos. So if we just jump into actions, and where do we like the photo? On this on click right here. So just add a data test ID of like photo hyphen doc ID, because we get the doc ID as a prop. There we go. So we can use that. And now we have a reference to be able to click on this particular one. And we know what this doc ID is because we have the photos fixture. And it should have a doc ID there. So we can just basically do like photo with this. So that's good. So next, we could potentially do this for the focus input too, where you have that user action to click the little comment, which is next to the like icon, and then it'll take you down to the input box. So let's just do that as well. So steal that, come down here, and we'll call this one focus input. Cool, so that's a good one to have. Everything's looking good in that file. Let's close it down, and now we can target these. So if we go to the photos fixture, let's find one. Let's get this one, so we get the doc ID of this. And just paste it in there, and it should be able to get it. And we're just going to click on it, and this one here is just following the user. This one here, let's make an action out of this. Or at least, if we click follow, then we click like. We'd at least want to just make sure these work right, so we can do a bunch of submissions on them. You could potentially check, you know what, this is a good one for you. Check maybe that the state updates, and by state I mean check maybe the class that's been applied for Tailwind. Does it actively apply to show the red around the heart? And then if you click it again, does it go away? So check in React Testing Library or Jest, has X class been applied? So yeah, that's definitely a good one for you to do. So I'll leave that one for you actually, see if you can do that. So I'll set you up right now to be able to click around, and then you can even get the, you know how in the actions we have the on key down? You can even test this, because we want coverage for this, right? So you just pass in enter, because that's the one we're using, the key event. Pretty good. And then fire event.click get by test ID. What we're getting by test ID here, let's do the focus input, and we'll just steal this. And we'll just click it, and then again go ahead and do some assertions in here, and this one's just to toggle like. So the first one, regular click, and this will toggle it using keyboard. Let's submit a photo. Now I don't want to hold your hand and show you how to do, like I've given you a lot of stuff here with the expect and to figure, you know, how to do user actions. I've shown you how to get everything on the page. Now if I was to, let's say, I think we have .change somewhere, right? In one of these tests. Yeah, so take one of these from sign up, where it just changes the text of an input field, and you can probably see where I'm going here. Add a comment to a photo on the dashboard. So we can't await this, which is fine. So take that off, we're already in there. Get by placeholder text, let's go ahead and get by test ID, which is this input. Actually, no, do we need to do that? I think we need another one of these actually. Let's call it add comment. Get by test ID, add comment. And I'm just going to put amazing photo. Now, test for amazing photo, and that'd be great if you could do that. And put it in the Discord, share it with other people. There's some hints above how to test that is on the page. I think it'd be good if you did that. But how do you submit it, right? I've changed the input, but how do I submit it? I'll show you. Fire event.submit. But how do I target the form? Because each component, each photo has an input, has a like, and then we'll go again, and there'll be the same input and like. So if I try target the form, which one do I know is going to be the one that submits? Well, we can target it by the doc ID. So let's say get by test ID, add comment, and we'll just provide that. Now we need to go and add these. So add photo and add photo. It's not add photo, add comment. We'll call this add comment submit. Now let's just, before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go ahead and get this, or not get it, at least apply it. And we can apply it in add comment, I think it is. And within add comment, we could potentially do the form. I think there's a form, sitting here. Data test ID, and this is the one we want to submit once the user has done their comment. So add comment, submit. And imagine there's a doc ID as a prop somewhere. There, good. So we can use that one. And then the next one you'd want to use is, God, what did we call it? Just add comment, wasn't it? Is there an input field here? Here's one. So yeah, let's add one here. Data test ID equals add comment doc ID. Make sure you get the hyphen in there. Give these a save. Let's hope there's no errors. If there's any errors, there's errors. Did I await something here? What did I await? 79. Yeah? What? There's no wait for that. Hey, we go. You know it's trying to add the comment, right? And when it's trying to add the comment, what's happening here? It's using field value, array union. So it's failing to get that because field value has either been mocked or it's trying to make, it looks like it's being mocked. So array union and array move, these both need to be included in the Firebase. So the Firebase lib exports field value, and that is just basically being destructured out of the Firestore. So when we pass in Firebase, we could basically just cheat actually, and let's see here. Let's just add field value, and we don't want to do anything with them really. Now I would suggest that you make sure this gets called, and I've given you the coverage now, the 100% coverage, but I want you to do some assertions. I want you to make sure, and this hopefully should pass. What? Strange. Firebase. So Firebase. Oh no, that's not going to work because it's a separate export. Do field values. I think that should work, but we need to pass that in here. Hopefully this works. Really? Array union. Let's see. I can't recall actually. Now, would it be called field values? No, it would not. But that's fine though. Yeah, that should be fine. So let's check my notes for mocking the field value. You want to pass in the Firebase, which should go down. How about we just do this? Get rid of that field value. Maybe that's a bit cleaner. Yay, there we go, that worked. So yeah, I've given you the coverage. Now it'd be nice if you could do the assertions, like for clicking on, because like here I'm showing you how to click and submit the form, right? Now it'd be awesome if you could actually just do the assertions. I think that would help you out a lot. So we got to a point where we submitted the form, and I think that's good, but I think we can potentially take this a bit further where we can even switch the focus. So we've submitted also a comment, which is good. Now we can go into like the actions of a post, and you can see here we haven't done the like for the toggling, nor here. But all the other ones look good. We haven't got the prevent default here if the comment.length is not greater than or equal to 1, because we do have a check on that. So what we could do is where we had a comment here, and we say we've submitted one already, let's submit a comment, or at least attempt, with an invalid string length. So just get rid of this, and let me just see if we get the coverage here now. Really? Oh, I'm being so silly. I've only changed the value, I haven't submitted it. So let's go ahead and submit it now. There we go, we'll submit it now. There we go, perfect. So you can see we've got the coverage. Just zoom in on that. Full coverage on this page, this component even. How about we just toggle maybe the focus? So where's the comments? It's fine, that's fine. Header, branch, index. Now, do we not handle the toggled liked? I thought we did handle that. Let's handle at least the focus, right? To make sure. So where's the on key down? So let's go for this one first, where basically we want to, if someone clicks enter on the keyboard, we want to focus it to the input. And change this value, toggle focus. So we can hit both of these really by just toggling. So we'll say focus input. Where's the key down gone? I know it was just key.enter, but I am feeling very much in copy and paste mode. So let's toggle the focus, add that, see if we get some coverage. Add comment submit, looks good to me. What we're doing here, all passing. No, we didn't get no focus. Focus input. Why? So if someone focus input is equal to enter, it should go to the box now. Did I spell or at least get the focus input correct? Yes. Like photo, okay. That's the only one we're missing. Interesting. So it's essentially saying the statement is not covered, but I cannot see why. So I am changing it with the input of focus input on this here. Then on key down, the event should be enter. Then it should call handle focus, which I believe is a prop. Yes. That is strange as to why it would do that. So we get the follow, we do a click. Now, did we get, I'm sure we got it for a regular like photo. So did we get it for a regular one when we just did the like photo? So image, actions, handle toggle liked. We didn't. Oh. Why? Is something going on with the test runner? These data test IDs, like photo, I'm sure that definitely exists within the fixture. Or maybe it doesn't. Timeline, doc ID does exist. And let's try a different doc ID for just 1 second. Let me try this one. So we do a regular click and then we toggle it. That's fine. And then we do a toggle like using the keyboard, which is here, regular one. We submit the form. Just split these off here. So toggle like using keyboard, fire event.click, focus input, okay. I just don't understand why we'd get that. So we add a comment on the photo on the dashboard with the target. Yes, we submit the form. So we submit that. Now change it again. Maybe we should add comment submit. That's fine too. Now for the toggling of the focus, when we're changing this, let's just give it a different doc ID. What? Okay, so we follow the user, that's working. A regular click is on, we're just liking the photo. Now I'll just put this here, toggle using the keyboard, and then click to focus on the comment input icon. That'll take you to the input box. So that click has been registered because if you click here, it should handle focus, which is just a prop, which just gets passed down. So we're up to that point, and that seems to work. And then once we do the click, we go to the input box, add a comment to a photo on the dashboard, which does the change, then submit the form of this particular doc ID, then submit a comment, or at least attempt to submit a comment with an invalid string. Okay, so it does that. But I would expect here fire event to go ahead and get me the on key down. Because why wouldn't it? Well, we've got it in here. Like photo, data test ID, and the on key down should just basically pass the key, and it should handle toggle liked. It's so strange why that isn't working. Event.key. Okay, something weird's happening. I know this should work. I'm clearly missing something here. Get by test ID. Let's see here. Submit a form. Submit a comment using this doc ID. So if we just take away these toggles on the enters, let's just see what actually happens. I wonder if we get anything. Oh, the likes go away. Is this the bug? Because obviously, I mean, it is using the enter, or else you wouldn't get here. What? How? I've spelled enter right, haven't I? Yeah, I'm just questioning everything at this point. Yeah, it's a strange one, honestly, because we see it changing. Now, I've come across this sort of stuff before, and I'm not surprised. Let me just... oh... What time is it here? 1:30. That's embarrassing. You're probably shouting at me at the screen. Key down. Yep, I'm so bad. Anyways, let's get that 100% coverage. Boom, there we go. Now your branches will show 83, but I mean, it's just saying because there's an else statement that hasn't been taken. We don't need an else there. Honestly, we don't need an else, so it's completely fine. 100%, especially on the posts. And now, go back to pages, dashboard. We're looking good. But this is not the end for the dashboard. We've got a lot more to do. So I want to test what happens if we render the dashboard with a user object of undefined, as in the user tries logging in somehow, but it's undefined. What would happen? Hopefully it would take them to log in or sign up, and we'll test that I don't get any of the user state. Now, also, we're testing for suggested profiles in here too. I think we should potentially not do that. So in here, I'm just going to grab this. And by the way, I'm not saying we shouldn't test for suggested profiles, but I also want to test what happens when there isn't any. So as you know, I do copy and paste, and I'm just going to take it back to the start, like right here. Now this is going to be a simple one, because I just want to see what happens, renders a dashboard with a user profile of undefined. Now it's going to be a really bad scenario if that happens, but we have to test this stuff, unfortunately. So let's see, promise.resolve, let's just resolve an empty object. Get rid of all the user information in here. We could potentially even get rid of field value. Yeah, I'll get rid of that. Don't need that. Gone. Get by text. And basically, I just want to check, do we get... well, what are we expecting? Let's just expect... logged in user. Let's see. Now, this, I want to test actually with this one. Can we have a user authentication, as in when it signs you up through the authentication flow, but no collection in Firebase? That would be a good one. So let's leave this in here, but let's presume there's no collection. I wonder what happens. So I'm hoping if our code is good, and we've thought about these scenarios, then you know, we can do like expect get by text, and there's nothing going to be happening here in terms of state changes or anything like that. So we don't have to wrap this in like an act. So let's just hope we get this. I hope so anyhow. Oh no. Really? Login. Login's broken up. Login. I see it. Have I spelt login like that? Yes, I have. Make sure you come in here, components headers, and just make sure login is one word. And I think that should then work. Let's see. No. Takes me to the not found page. But the not found has login. And it does redirect, which is good. So that's actually good. What am I using? No, login seems fine. So you could run into that scenario. It's very unlikely. What's this? Wait for, where's this? Line 50? Where? Renders the not found page with an anonymous user received null. Oh, it's broke our test. That's really good. That is really good. Do we have log in anywhere else like that? Yeah, we broke the test, which is good though, because it tells you, look, it's broken certain expectations. But good, I'm actually really pleased that in this scenario, it redirects the user if for some weird attempt and failure has happened when a user signs up, like on the sign up flow. So they get signed up, which here, but then if something weird happens after this, like here or after this point around collections, we do take them to the dashboard, but the dashboard is smart enough to go ahead and redirect them. And basically just, because this will come back as undefined, so we should hopefully get a redirect. And it seems to be doing that in the test, which is good. So now, let's basically just render another flow. Actually, what we could just do here is expect, no, this should be enough. Query by text. Query by text. Suggestions for you, because that's not going to exist, is it? Because you're going to get redirected to be falser. Now, I wonder if it does this. Let's see, query by text. Is it falsy? WA, let's rerun this. Hopefully it's falsy. And I always want to just switch this just to test that the test isn't lying to me. There we go. Perfect. Amazing. And that's it. The profile's the only one left. But you see, look, we bumped the context. All the context gets used. Constants for the routes, they're all being used. The lib's being used, Firebase, which is good. Pretty much most of the components are being used. We can play around with signing someone out as well. Yeah, we'll have to do that. We'll have to get that coverage in there too. Just make sure you can see this. So when I switch between them. So yeah, the next one would be the profile. So great job on that one. And please, I do urge you to come into this test here. I've built a good one for you where I've done all the clicking around. Now, what would be amazing if you started doing like expectations, expect X to do Y, or equal Y, and get those assertions in there. Just make sure your tests are really strong. And you can use some of these to really help you out there. So yeah, great job. We're doing well. This was a big one to test because there's so many inner components. But with these like integration tests, you have to make sure you're mocking everything. That essentially isn't your code. That's what I like to mock. Stuff that's not my code. But in some scenarios, I'll even mock my own code because I know it's been tested elsewhere. But stuff that's making like a service call or it's pulling in a module, sometimes you need to mock this stuff. And to be honest, it's never a straight path with testing. The terminal or the console, depending on what you're working on, will always be the source of truth for what you need to fix to get the render to happen. And once the render's happened, that's when you can start focusing on doing user actions, then checking for assertions. So focus on getting that render to happen, and then it's smooth sailing. Right, so let's get this last test done. The one we're going to be doing is the profile. So as you can see on the left, a bunch of stuff here. User.username, but it's all the components that really make a difference here. The header, the user profile header that's inside, the followers, the likes, all that information. So there's a lot to go over here. But I can show you some new techniques, which would be cool. So if we just go ahead and get a new file in the pages, so profile.test.js, there's a few things we can definitely reuse in here, then we can just, chop away. And generally when you've got a lot of components that we're either reusing or there's some like integration between certain components, you are going to get a lot of reusability out of your tests. And that's one of the good things, because once you do one or two, you can start speeding it up and doing some copy and pasting here and there. So let's just grab the entirety of dashboard.test.js all the way down to line 24, which is the jest.mock hooks use user. Now, I can't guarantee we're going to use all this, but it just makes sense for me to pull this in, because I know we're going to be using Firebase, logged in user, because we want to test how's the profile work when somebody is logged out or logged in. So if I am logged in as Carl, I go view Raphael's profile. Can I follow them? Certain user actions like that is what we definitely want to test. As always, let me just restart this. We could always just remove a few of these when we don't need them. So we can pay close attention, and what's great about having VS Code, and I'm sure it's the same in WebStorm and Sublime and all these other editors, well, just tells me it's never been used, so we can just keep track of this. There's a few more fixtures that we will need right off the bat, and I want you to pull these in from the GitHub if that definitely helps. Or what we could potentially do is just go to fixtures. So we have a logged in user. Let's grab this and let's say profile followed by logged in user. So that is going to be a profile that I view, Raphael, and I already follow that particular user. So let's we could do Raphael, but let's just mix it up. Let's use George Orwell in this case. So say Orwell, George Orwell, George at donotfollow.com. And then one of the followers would be myself. So what was the fixture that I used? Logged in user, which is that's my user ID here. So let's just use this, and I'll go into this fixture of the person I intend to follow, and I'm just going to remove every let's see here, every individual entry of the followers, and I'm just going to use my own user ID. So that should be enough for now. And that's one of the fixtures that we need. So that can help us render a profile. That's not my own, because I don't want to render my own profile like here, logged in user. I don't want to go ahead and render my own profile and view my own profile, because there's not interactions that I can do on there really, because I can't follow myself. So we need one that we can follow, and that's George Orwell. And it should show here that we're following. The next one, we could either just modify this one and add and remove from this in the test. So like if we pulled in fixture.followers, we could just do this. That works. And I can show you both variations, but let's just take this and we'll call this one profile followed, not followed by logged in user.js. So we'll just get rid of this. He doesn't have any followers, so we can test an iteration to say we follow them, we unfollow them. So certain actions, that should be useful. So if we now just go back to the profile, one thing that we can do here is we can pull in both fixtures. So we can go ahead and say profile that is followed by the logged in user. And that's a huge variable name, but it just makes it massively obvious what's going on. Fixtures, profile, followed by logged in user. Don't be afraid to just have huge variable names. It makes them more descriptive. Put not followed, and then in here, profile not followed. And we've got two new fixtures, and we can use these in here. And I know for sure we need these, right? Because we have to render a profile. Another one, let's change the dashboard to profile. In here, profile. And then we've got some mocks going on. They should be good. Describe. What should we call this? Well, it's a page, so I'll just say profile. It's fairly obvious when the iteration runs. And of course, I like to reset my mocks, just.clear all mocks. So it looks good. And then we'll put, so it renders the profile with a user profile. It renders the profile page with a user profile. So it's active, right? We have an active user. We're not going to get redirected or not found or anything like that. And because there's a lot going on here in terms of like mock implementation, and we've got a lot of asynchronous actions that we intend to do, we need to await the action. And we've done this previously. So we can await this, and of course, make sure that's async. And then we want to say get user by username. And if we just open up the profile, where's it? Pages, profile. Check username exists, right? So we know we have this Firebase function, so we just need to go ahead and mock this. And we can mock implementation, and we can pass in get user by username. I mean, this could just be a simple render of my profile. Let's just check that we have like the UI components and stuff. So we'll pass in my own user fixture. And then the next one would be get user photos by username. And it doesn't really matter that I haven't posted any photos on my profile because we're using a fixture. So we can just pass photos fixture. So that should render the photos, and we've used that in the previous one. So we are aware of how that works, and then use user mock implementation. We can just pass in my own. So it's me viewing my own profile. That's what's happening right there. Right, so now we actually need to render this. And again, this just comes back to, you know, how we've gone about like rendering this sort of stuff here. So we can take just any of these really. So dashboard.test.js. And we can just render this. We don't need all this for now, just say get by text. I'm not too sure what we're actually going to be using, to be honest, but Firebase is going to be different because I want to be able to log out, because you can log out when you're logged in. Dashboard, of course, that has to be profile. So I'm just going to take that all the way back to there. User context, we'll just use the same one. Logged in user context, I don't think that gets used on that page. We'll soon find out if we get an error. But I think that seems fine. The only other thing that I do want to test is to make sure that we have a sign out in there, you know, like a mock that we can basically assign. And I want to test that sign out is in there. But a lot of this, I do want you to go ahead and add some more assertions in here. And don't just take what I've done, because you can always get more confidence from your test by writing this stuff. And also, I know I've been passing like Firebase in here, like, you know, just like Firebase. You can actually just pass the value straight in if you wish. So you could just say Firebase and then auth jest.function. And for this one, we just want sign out, because we do call the header on the profile, and in here should be sign out, or at least somewhere. There it is. So we want to just mock this basically. So to follow that structure, it was firebase.auth.signout. So jest.function. We can just resolve anything. It should be enough. Now I'm not too sure if this is going to work. Oh, it did work. That was very lucky. So look, it renders a user profile, and that's good. Now we need to make sure that we test the else statement as well, just to make sure if there isn't a profile, and then we just do a redirect. But yeah, we got kind of lucky on that test because there wasn't many errors, but everything that we basically provided the profile with some fixtures. There's a bunch of stuff we can actually test though, but we're in a good position. I was not expecting to get to that part that quickly. But anyhow, whilst we're in here and we're doing the await, should we just like continue on and just start writing some assertions? Let's just see. Expect mock history push. Now we don't expect a redirect to happen, right? Because history.push here, we can see it's red and it's saying, look, it's not worked because we have a valid profile. So I'll say to be called with roots.notfound. Do we have roots? We don't, so let's pull that in. Get suggested profiles. Yeah, there's a few things I don't think we need here. Maybe? Do we need? Did I just do? Yeah, okay. Let's put in roots. Roots. Let's see, routes. What did we input as? Input all as routes from, I think it was constants, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah, we just want to make sure it's not being called with. To be honest, we can even just say it's not being called, because I don't want it to get called whatsoever, really, because why would you redirect someone off the page? Cool, so yeah, that works. And we can use these, but just switch them and take the not out for the next iteration to make sure that if a user doesn't exist, we can check that. So say get by username, which is our mock that we had up here. We mocked it with user fixture, but the parameters is, we don't have any parameters set up. So what would we expect this to be called with? Well, the user fixture actually is Orwell. So is it? No, it's not Orwell, is it? It's me. So yeah, let's just see what it actually gets called with, to have been called with. So just by breaking the test, hopefully that breaks it. And then what we can do is, one failed. What did it get called with? To have been called with, received undefined. Good. Okay. So what that is basically telling me is the use params, which I believe we use history, check user exists, user profile, username there, use params. So we need to give it a username. So we need to mock that use params actually. So use params. Let's see, we'll pass a username of, let's pass Orwell. And hopefully this should now not say undefined, and it should say, rerun that. I'm sure there's a comma there now, yeah. Should say it shouldn't be called. There we are, Orwell received. Gets called twice. Now, that's fine because I guess we get a rerender going history. See, Orwell. Cool, so that should pass. And yeah, it's just a simple mock to say, look, this is the parameters that have been used. Go ahead and just work off these for the tests. Right, so what should be on the page at this point? We have a logged in user, we're viewing George Orwell's page, or we're viewing my profile actually. Which is strange, right? Because even I've passed it my data. The parameter that was actually set was Orwell. And now I could switch it, but you can play around with your tests if it helps. Yeah, basically, yeah, when I'm writing tests, I use like all sorts of names. It's still user data at the end of the day. It's still user data. So it gives me confidence in the test. So let's say expect, what would we expect on this page actually? Now we're going to have to expect, yes, get by title. Sign out should be a button, I believe. Sign out. It is title, sign out. Yep. So let's make sure we can test that. Let's see, get by title. And we can test that with sign out. Sign out. And what should we just to be true for, and then we can switch that when it's falsy. The next one, we can say get by text, which would just be my username, should just be Carl. And then the one after that, let's test for my full name. And let's see if we get any errors. Hopefully not. Whee, there we go, that's good. Now let's just see where we stand with the coverage file. So the profile's not too bad. We do have to do the extra branch. But when you come in here now, we can test the header. So we need to make sure we can follow a user, right? And unfollow a user. So there's a few things to do. But you can see how easy it is. You just pass it a fixture and you can render out your page. And the most important things is to just work with mocks. That's definitely the most important. So continuing on, you'd notice like on the user profile, you have followers, following, and what else? Photos. Like how many photos does this person have? So it's hard when you just do get by text and followers is split. So if I just say, how many photos do I expect? So let me just see photos is there. Come on, I think it's going to fail. Yeah, it's going to fail. There we are, because it's broken up into multiple elements. Now the text does exist, and Cypress is much better at this for not giving you this error. Just say, yeah, look, I found the text, it exists. Now, photos does exist in this scenario, but it doesn't like that it's broken up. As in like here, look, 5 photos, even though it should be lowercase. Nevertheless, yeah, we understand it's broken up, just get rid of the HTML and say, yeah, look, it exists. So to do this, it's really tedious. Now, I don't know if there's a better way, actually. I'm sure there is. But you can do, I think we need to bring in screen. Do we have an auto import on this screen? Here we are, look, testing, library DOM. So I'll just bring that in, and basically, again, just comes straight out of testing library. So just make sure this is in here. And what you want to do is say get by text. So now we're focusing on the screen, and this example is just taken off the React Testing Library website, but it works. It's a bit convoluted, but it works. So we can say const has text. We can pass a node var, and then node.text content is equal to 5 photos. Now we can say const has the node. Does this have text? Don't worry too much about this, honestly. This is literally for you. I just copy and paste it each time you need to check duplicate content, and it's on the React Testing Library cheat sheet, so definitely check that out. Const children don't have text. Array.from node.children.every.child, and we'll just make sure the child has text. Child. Return node has text, and children don't have text. I think that should do it, whether it does or not, but that's pretty much what I've come to use in my projects. It looks like it's failed because of that. So yeah, let's just see if this works. So this is the one here. Feel free to just copy and paste this from the GitHub. That's what I'd recommend. You're not going to learn anything from this. Apart from that, you can find broken text. Unable to find an element with text. Content equals 5 photos. Why? So content comes in, node has text, node. Children don't have text, node has text, and children don't have text. Interesting. So let me just double check that the copy and paste from context, yeah. So just make sure this is text content, not context like it was there. I basically copied and pasted it a while back from React Testing Library. I just use it. And you can see now it's just pulled out. A good way to look at this would be just going to the components, profile, and the header. You'll see down here we have following. It'll give you the follower count, right? So there, look, photos count, photos. So that's going to get replaced by 5 and then photos. But yeah, a good way to just use this is don't care too much about the implementation, just care that it works, because it's just how React Testing Library do it. But I reckon in the future, this will just simply be a one-liner. Right now, maybe it already is, but I've just been using this for so long that I just know it works. So you can copy these 3. They're all the same apart from this bit here. So you could even just have a reusable function. Yeah, so once we've done that, we can just say, okay, go ahead and sign the user out. So we know the user signed in, that's our expected test. We can see we have sign out to be truthy. Fire event.click get by title, sign out. Let's just see if that click works, and then we should hopefully get some more coverage on these, clickable actions. Let's see. No, 3 photos. How many is there? How many photos is there? How many do we have? 5 photos. Oh, whoa. 3 photos. No, that should be 3 followers. So yeah, you want the photos, the followers, and the following. Those are the ones you want to target because those are the ones we built in the application. And there we are, passing test. Cool. So we've signed the user out, right? A user has clicked sign out. So do we have sign out in here? No, we don't, because it's not the profile. It's just a regular header component. So does sign out get hit? Yeah, it does, right? It gets hit. So we can also test that a key down works. Yeah, that a key down does work. Now, what does history get called with at that point? Let's see if it gets called when it signs out. But what? It's a little annoying that it takes you back to the login at that point, because it is a user profile, I guess. Let's just test, see what it gets called with. Login, there we are, that's good. That's expected. Routes.login. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I could potentially show you on this one. You could also switch this to the key down if you wish. I know it's cheating somewhat, but it's kind of the same action. So you could just do key down, sign out, pass this here, key, enter. There you are. And it should hopefully get coverage there as well. Now it's never going to push you away. There we go. Key down. Did I do key down here? I did do key down. Probably isn't sign out at that point though, I imagine. Why? If path not taken. Sign out, get by title, key. Really? Let me see. Let's see if we get the coverage on that now. I'm expecting this on click to go and this one. Ooh. Really? Key down. I remember I did this one before and it was giving me trouble. What did we use the key down in last time? Oh God, was it not found? Key down. Dashboard. Maybe, did I spell anything wrong? The key is enter. Oh, the mock has not failed. Why is this test behind? That's weird. Give it a rerun. Let's see. The event is. Let me just check that the title is definitely sign out. Okay, yeah, I'm glad that failed. Expected login didn't get called. That's good. Is there another title in here? No, there's not. And the key is definitely enter. sign out. I don't think I'm going to wait at that particular point. Let's see here. Where does this end? Put that back to enter. I'll rerun the test. Yeah, let's rerun this. Something weird's going on. I know we had something similar in the previous test. Okay, so it works there. I guess it doesn't like it inside here just because it's waiting, and then I do something else again. So that's something I definitely want to fix. Do we need the await there? Let's see. I don't think we do. No, we don't, which is good. Let's bring all of these down. Yeah, just make sure, let's see. Make sure these are outside of that await for, which is this. There we go, there's the coverage. Perfect. Okay, so that's looking good. We've completely covered the header. Branches, don't worry about that because it's just complaining there's no else there. And what do you expect? So what else do we need to cover? We need to follow toggling and unfollowing, basically. Toggling for follow, unfollow. And that should be it on this particular test. But there's a few more assertions. But what we can do is we can go ahead and just like copy this test in a second. I definitely want to test out a profile page with a user. You can follow a user, unfollow a user. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, if we don't have a user profile, we just want to redirect. So let's just check that happens. So the next one we can do some copy and paste again because mostly going to be the same stuff for that iteration. So yeah, let's do that. Right, so let's work on how to make this responsive. And I've got to be honest, Tailwind does make this fairly easy for us, being a mobile first utility framework. And essentially, how it works is, let's say, well, let me show an example here. Let's say we have flex column on here. And you can see it goes into a nice column. And this will be the default state until you go to large flex row. So these values, saying the min width at large has to be 1024, and then we're going to put it into a row. So now, let's see if this actually goes into a row. Actually, no, it doesn't, because it just reminded me. Go into your Tailwind config, and there's a change. Here you want to say extend, because if not, we're going to wipe out basically a lot of everything that's going on. Likewise with colors, if you want all the default colors, just extend them. Don't just write over them. So let's take a look. I think that should have done it. Yeah, there we go. Look, it just switches. Perfect. Now, I don't feel like we need this image. I mean, I don't see it on... Actually, do we actually have this image? I don't think this image is actually used by not Tailwind, but Instagram on a small display. So we can just say hidden, and then at large, display flex. And it's basically just these two. Like, it's so good. Likewise with this here, where it's like width 3/5. Put this to a default of from the smallest screen, 5.5, and then when you get to large, you can basically stick like large or medium in front of anything. And we'll have to do the same here. Let's put that to large, and then flex call, we'll say width is full. A few other things that we missed when I was building this this particular app. I want it definitely to always be in the center, so justify center, height of full, and then let's see. We've got it in the middle. Max width MD, and then max auto, I think it is. And I like to keep the sizings near each other. So I'll keep the actually width full. Yeah, we'll go with width full, and then I'll just put it to 2/5 when we get up here. Let's see. Okay, is that one working? Oh, as a matter of fact, I think we need to apply it actually up there. What I'd like in general is, like, we have flex row here. We have the height screen. I want to get some padding in there. So I'm just going to set px4, so the x value. There we go. So we've got some nice padding. But when you get to large, take that padding off. px0. So does that padding get removed? We get to large. Hopefully it does. The image, I've hidden the image. It should be large flex when we get to the top bit. Large width 3/5. Oh, we got large flex there. Let's see. So hidden large flex. I mean, that does look correct when I was going through this. Width. Sometimes I do mistake the submax width. That looks fine. So let's just jump into the DevTools. Why aren't we seeing? Because this shouldn't be, it should be displaying the image at least. Oh, hidden. So what's not being activated here? Large flex. When it gets to large, it should give us a flex. Flex. Large 3/5. That seems fine. Let's see. So that one definitely. Interesting. So container flex call large row, width max width MD item center. We go for the height screen, px4 large. So hidden. Let me just take this off. So it comes back, works fine. But when we get to large, it's not displaying. Large flex, let's say call. So it shouldn't just be hidden. Oh, actually. Large flex, but then we're also large, I think it's visible. Visible? LG large. Now, why is that? It should be allowing us to go to the large part. So let me just check. On my notes, I think I had. Let me try this. That's the iPhone with profile. Okay, we're gonna have to go into Tailwind and see. Let's take a look. Because that shouldn't be massive, right? We don't want that to be massive. So it does look fairly ugly. We can take this off here actually. We don't need that simply because it was just giving us, I think, 50%, and we want the full width. It's interesting that even though we've said hidden, Tailwind, hidden, visibility. So if we're looking here, MD invisible. To apply a visibility utility breakpoint, add screen prefix. For example, adding the class MD invisible to an element. So yeah, it's got to be hidden, then large. Visible, no? Oh, hold up. What's going on with the variance? The visibility? By default, only responsive variants are generated for visibility utility classes. You can control what variants are generated, visibility, extend variants. Is there anything going on in the Tailwind config that we haven't seen? Extend. Let me just get rid of the variants a second, because then we can see. No, there's nothing going on there. Super strange. Use invisible to hide an element, but maintain its place in the DOM. No, I want hidden. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Why is just display hidden? Yeah, so hidden, MD inline flex. Really? LG inline flex? Yeah, I thought it would apply the same one as flex. Just put this in here, display focus, group hover. I don't think that matters. If you don't want to use a plain utilities project, you can disable them. Control the property of an element at a specific breakpoint. No, I just want to be able to. Oh god, where's this gone? So, as much as I love Tailwind, like hidden, right, is here. So it's mobile responsive. Just go, look, this is hidden. But what's the opposite of hidden in Tailwind? Should just be visible. Display hidden. Hidden. Like, yeah, what's confusing about that is you'd expect the flex to kick in. Block, let's see. It's just not showing it whatsoever. Like, block isn't being showed either. Now, I think the reason actually for this, let me restart this, because now we've applied that new Tailwind config. I think what I'm doing was right. But because I was overriding the variant and not extending, that's what's potentially caused this. I hope so anyways, we'll find out. Tick tock. It's gone. There we go. Yeah, it was basically. Yeah, I was going to be insane thinking, what's going on? But you need to extend, or else it won't be there. But yeah, there you are. Simple page, and you can jump over to sign up. Oops, sign up. Yeah, it's sign up, and we can basically just do the same, because they are similar in how they're handled. So if we go to here, take this, add it on there, just make sure the sign up is not responsive. Yeah, it's not responsive at the minute, which is good. Same here with hidden flex, and we'll just say large when it gets to large. Width full, and then large 5.5. Oh no, not 5.5, 35. The class name here also, I want this to just be object. Yeah, I think contain will be maybe object scale down, so it'll just go all the way down, but it won't get bigger than it's meant to, the original size, that is. So here, we can basically just apply this utility classes because it's the same. Or can we? Yeah, we can. Yeah, works fine. But yeah, responsiveness in Tailwind is good. Really simple to get going. Look at that. So simple. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's log in and do the dashboard. Now the dashboard is going to be a bit more tricky because we have to walk through elements. So I want to kind of keep that there. Actually, no, let's just put it all the way down. Look, it doesn't work, right? So let's go to that page. We'll start here. This is the main one that has the header. Actually, no, because the header should be fine. We do need to come to the header though. Grid calls, justify. We need that padding like we did before. So padding X4, large, we'll take it off. So only on responsive devices. So if we take this header, which one is it? It's the components header, isn't it? So it's just going to there. What we're going to need is basically the same thing there. So we get it directly here. There we go. Perfect. I wonder if there's much to do for that. I mean, what we could potentially do is maybe we hide the avatar. Is that something we could do? Because the avatar takes up a bit of room, and responsively, if we just go into like an iPhone X, I mean, it works. It does work. But it's not the, I don't know. Is it the best? I don't know. Let's take it off. You can choose to leave it on, by the way. Don't feel pressured because I'm doing it. God, I'm hungry. My stomach's going crazy. What time is it? Nearly 1 a.m. Yeah, I'll finish the responsiveness and I should eat because my stomach's growling at me. Let's see if there's anything else that we could do here. One of the things that I did spot, now I don't know if, can I, yeah, let me inspect this just a bit. You see there's like, it looks like there's some margin here. Is there a margin? Yeah, margin right of 6. Now I don't like that there's a margin right of 6 there, like currently. So I'll take the margin off and just say on a large screen, give me that margin right, because then that should push over. Suggestions. Now you don't have that actually on Tailwind. It's not Tailwind. Why Tailwind? On Instagram. So do we get rid of those? I think it probably makes sense, doesn't it? Like if we're not actually using them. I'm trying to think where we actually do use these. Let's see. Do we get rid of the sidebar? I think we should because you can't really see the image. So let's go ahead and get rid of it and just make that image a bit bigger. Let's say P4 hidden. And just say from medium actually, we'll give the user the sidebar back. But there we go. So now we need this in the middle. Let's get this 100% or 125 so we can see what we're working with. So yeah, let's go with the timeline. The timeline's the next one because that's the one what we need to be pushed over. So container. Okay, so we don't really need a container here, so we can get rid of that. Get rid of container. We'll do the call span to 3 because obviously it's mobile first, so we want to span it across because we were using 2 and then the sidebar was using 1. So we just want to give it the entire 3. And then for a large call span 2, actually, because we did medium block, let's put that back to large so it just matches up. Yeah, that looks good. What would happen if I kept that to medium, actually? Let's see. Does it come down at the bottom? No, it doesn't. I'm just going to put it back to large, just to be sure. And then when we get to large, make this a bit smaller so that we can actually... Come on. It looks like we've hidden the sidebar somehow. Let me jump out of responsive mode here. Okay, so something's not working. So it's huge. So it looks like this has gone missing. I don't know why I stuck block on there. Let me do flex. Right, so the sidebar is gone. It's a good day. I've had enough. Goodbye. Sidebar, where are you? Can I see you? Okay, so is that because I got rid of the container? I thought maybe we didn't even need the container. A large call span 2. Yeah, it wasn't the container. So we have a call span of 3. Then we go to 2, which is fine. Is this hidden? It's not hidden. So this is spanning too far across. Now why is that large not kicking in? Let me just put this back to 2. So I want to make sure we've got the sidebar. So it's gone back to 2. And the sidebar's there. The sidebar's a bit messed up at the moment. Because I think this is still spanning across. Yeah, call span 2. Call span 3. Let me get rid of this. So it should go across now. Now I'm wondering, is this another Tailwind issue in the config? So I think we should potentially purge. Oh, take off the purge, actually. We shouldn't be purging unless we're actually in production mode, and I think that could be, yes, that's what was happening. It was getting rid of unused classes even though we were requiring those classes. You only want that when you're doing like a production build. Right, so let's just go back. Sidebar should be gone. Large call span, and that seems to be working again as expected. Now I've put that in as flex, but you can actually put it to block. I think that should just put it back to normal about the flex row. Yep. Okay, that's good. Now it works nicely there. Let's test it in an iPhone. Wow, there we go. Perfect. Timeline. Fairly easy with Tailwind, right? Now the next one is the profile. Tailwind just makes it so easy to create like a responsive site. So it's going to be fairly similar. You know how we was using, what we were using it. We wanted that nice padding, didn't we? That's what we wanted. So the header of the user profile. So if we just go to user profile, let's just find where I got this on my notes. Profile. Right, so if we go in here, and then the header is in here. So let's just look here. I'm trying to figure out what should we do with this header. On the Instagram site, it looks okay, but we've got the 40 width and you can see it's having trouble here. So let's stick these to 16 and they go up in increments of 4. Margin, and we'll just say height is 20. Large, we'll put that back to 40, the 40 height. Medium, we said 20. Large width 40. Width 40. Okay, that looks good. Do the same for this one. So what should we do with? What should we do with the followers and even the profile images that the user's using? I'm trying to think. Like, should we show that name? It does look fair. It is pushing over. I kind of want. I'm not too sure. Let's do flex call to begin. And let's see if that could give us a nice... Yeah, let's put it as... let's stack them. And then when we've got a large viewport, we can just put them back to normal. Because it's the only way, really. And I reckon responsively... Yeah, it still works good. I think it still works. Now we just have to do the photos, and I think we're good. But yeah, like I said, Tailwind just makes it so easy to do. Right, so you see we have no padding here, so let's go ahead and say px top. Do we need px top there? Oh, no, get rid. LGPX0. There we are, some nice padding, but I want to put these in, because the way we're rendering them is good enough. And Tailwind, why do I keep saying Tailwind? Instagram does it this way. Instagram render in this particular format, but I don't think it's that good. I'd prefer to see the full width, to be honest. So maybe do we make it exactly the same, or do we make it a bit better? Oh, I'm trying to think what we should do. Let's just make it a bit better. Feel free to leave it like this. Honestly, this is just me being a bit nitpicky, but I'm going to give this a grid column of 1 and put it so you just have 1 image there, and then when it's on large, go back to 3. And I think that should just do it. And there we go. I prefer this, but feel free to definitely not go with this if you don't like it. It's fine. But yeah, that's the responsiveness. Really, really easy to do. Sign up, log in. And there we go. If there's anything I've missed, just let me know, but I think that's it. 4 pages, right? There was the profile, the dashboard, the sign up, the login. Unfollow, follow. Yep, perfect. So great job on the responsiveness. Like I said, just drop me any tips also. Tips, tricks, just let me know so I can share it with the community. That'd be really good. And Tailwind just smashes that out of the park. It just makes it so easy to do that. Imagine doing that with raw CSS, media queries, or even with style components. Yeah, I'm a convert. I do like it now. Right, so let's take a look at Cypress. Let's do that now. Okay, so let's finish this by looking at how we can get Cypress up and running. So what you want to do is we can actually, I think they have a yarn implementation here. So we're using yarn. So you want to do yarn add Cypress -dev. Yarn add Cypress. Just zoom in on the terminal. Hit enter on that. And that should install Cypress, which will give you a new folder called Cypress. And in there you have stuff like fixtures, integration, plugins, support. There's a bunch of good stuff in there. Yeah, we're going to get this up and running. And I'll show you how we can write some end-to-end tests. What's good about this too is the documentation is really good. There's a ton of integrations, plugins, also best practices. So yeah, let's take a look at how we can actually go ahead and use this. So once it installs, there's not really anything to do in terms of package.json setup like we did with React Testing library. the only thing that we actually need to do is just configure. I guess we could configure. Is there anything we need to configure in terms of references, maybe? There's a bunch of boilerplate you do get when you just initially install Cypress. Let's have a look. We may need to set like a, I don't know, like a base URL. So I think we should get a Cypress like integration file here, which will be just a .json, but it's like the source of truth for like the base URL. Where does Cypress have to target its interaction? So in our case, we can set localhost 3000, and then you can also specify like viewports for the height, the width, the environmental variables, so like the login. We can do our pages essentially, so we can put all our pages in there. And Cypress does seem to be taking a while. Just make sure, is it coming here yet? Not just yet. So yeah, whilst you do that, I'll come back once it's done. It should be done any second, but I'll just pause the recording and I'll come back just so you don't have to wait. But essentially, this is what you got to install if you didn't get it. It was yarn add Cypress --dev. There it is. If you can't see that, I'll just put that there. And that's what you need to install. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so now that's done, we do have Cypress, which should be in here. So we now need to start Cypress, and this is where it'll do the initialization of all the files and folders. So I'm just coming into scripts. I've added one called E2E for end-to-end, and then it's just going to run Cypress open. So you can do yarn run E2E, and it's going to open up Cypress. And it should hopefully, yep, there we go. It'll add a bunch of stuff. So just a bunch of examples which are really useful, so you can either keep them or delete them. I'm going to delete them, but feel free to keep them around that you can reference in the future. So I'll click OK, got that. I'll just stick this to one side at the minute. And then I'll come into here. We have example fixtures, which we can keep. Plugins, that's fine as well. The most important part right now is this .json here. Now this .json is going to be like our reference for our setup. So I'm going to start out by saying the base URL is going to be http localhost 3000. Let's increase that a bit. And then the viewport width, you can put this to whatever you want, but I think this looks pretty good when it's running our tests. And then I'll change the height as well. The width and the height, sorry. So let's put the height to 1000, that seems fine. And then for the envs, so environmental variables that you can reference in Cypress, I'm going to give it login URL. Just do /login. And come down here, sign up URL, which should be sign up. And then dashboard, and we know this one, dashboard. We don't really need URL. We can actually just get rid of that. And then just give that a save, and that's what you need for your initial setup. So we can close everything down, and the main work will go on inside this integration. Now, again, there's a bunch of examples as to how Cypress works. And you may get this annoying context is not defined or no one used def. Likewise with CY. We can solve this by just using ESLint ignore. But firstly, I just want to delete these. Now, please, if you want to continue on with your learnings around Cypress, these are a great reference. So keep them around, but I'm going to go ahead and delete them. So I'm going to create a new folder with integrations called pages. And the first thing that I want to test is the login.test.js. And to begin, we can just do a regular describe. Like so. Come on. And this is why I am getting rid of this laptop. Okay, so just say login, and then we'll say before each, just like a regular test, CY, the first thing to happen on each iteration is I want you to go ahead and visit, let's see here, cypress.config, which we just set up, .base URL. Now you can either supply /login or you can reference the environmental variables, which is in cypress.json. Now I don't mind this way, but I feel like environmental variables shouldn't have pages, so I'm going to show you how to set them here. But honestly, I think the best thing to do is just reference them here. But it's neither here nor there, to be honest. But yeah, you will get these annoying errors, so it's mostly no unused def, and if you just disable that with this ESLint disable, it should just fix it. So first thing is we want to basically just make sure that the UI is working fine within Cypress, so we can do a cy get. I'm going to say go into the body of the document, and within that body I want you to look for a div, and that div, like any of the divs, should contain the text "don't have an account, sign up," and that's what's on the login page. Now we can also check that there's an image there. So I'll say get a div, and I know the image sits within a div. I want you to go find an image. So it'll go into the div, then it'll find an image. And it can be any div, so it's just going to keep digging until it finds an image. Now the image should be visible. It should have an attribute, that's an alt tag, and it should contain, so this alt tag should contain iPhone with Instagram app. Cool. So let's write our first iteration. So we'll say it inputs the email address and password and logs let's just say and submits the form. And then we'll do another cy.get, where cy.get just allows us to target DOM elements, and that's about it. It's really useful. I'll say within this form, go ahead and get the input, the first input, which should have an attribute, which is a placeholder of email address. And now we have that particular value. So now I can say, once we have that value, type into that box, and I want you to type carlhadwin@gmail.com. And then we can copy this, and I'm using first and last here for the inputs because I know there's only two. We can go ahead and say should have password, and I'll just type test123. Okay, so we've got two inputs now. We've targeted both inputs. And then we can do cy.get button that should contain .text login. And these are all in the examples that Cypress give you. So it's really useful. And once we have that button, we can click it. I imagine you can just chain this on the end of here. So let's take a look. Let's open up Cypress. So here, unexpected cypress.json, let's go take a look. Cypress, where was this complaining? Strange. What have we done wrong here? Seems fine JSON to me. Try again. Maybe it'll reopen Cypress. Let's reopen Cypress. Remember, on that first initial run of Cypress is when the files and folders get created. There we go. So it says here, we could not verify the server is running, so you have to start the server too. So let's do that now. Come on, give me a terminal and just say yarn start. So now our server's running. We can head back to Cypress, click Click try again, and you see integration tests, pages, login.test.js. Click on this, and it should run through the Instagram app. Wow, and it logs in. So that's pretty cool, right? So now we can start doing like some more assertions around the wrong information. And what's good about this, it can walk you through a trace of all the steps that I took. So you can see here it's entering. Firstly, it gets the last input, and then it'll do the type, text 1, 2, 3, and then it clicks on the button. And Firebase is really hard to mock, but if you manage to do that, that'd be great, and it'd be great to share with the community. So what I tend to do, I just click back to test, click off that test, minimize this, and then so we have a test, and you can also, there's a few things you can actually do here. If you want to like validate that, I don't know, let's say for example you wanted to wait on that page for 5 seconds, you could just use cy.wait 5000, and that's in milliseconds. So wait for the page, and then that'll help you wait, and we can see that next. So we do have all this stuff now, but here we're just checking for like basic stuff on the page, visit, has the correct text and so forth. But let's just copy this test. So it inputs the email address and password and submits the form with the wrong info. So we can pretty much keep this, but we can change the password to something that's just wrong. Bad password. And we can also do like certain validations on the button just to make sure. Let's see, should contain, I just said not be disabled. So the button's not going to be disabled because someone's written in there, right? They've put in information in the first input box and the second. So the email address and the password. So we have information, therefore our check that we did inside the application to disable or enable the button. Now it shouldn't be disabled at that point. I'm sure if you come up here, we can just make sure that this is be disabled, should be disabled. We can take off the wait here. And now what happens if we run this? So let's pull up Cypress. I'll go ahead and rerun this. Stop it running, click again. Then we now have 2 iterations. So you'll see it wait. So it's going to wait 5 seconds. Then it'll go to the next one. And we should get some information there. So the password is invalid or the user does not have a password. Perfect. So what we want to actually do for this one, and you can see our button, make sure it's disabled and then disabled. We can actually test for that particular piece of text. So we can do get body, because that's what we expect to see. And within the body, cy.get div should contain text. The password is invalid or the user does not have a password. And we can just rerun that to make sure it's working fine and that we actually do get that information. So it's really useful. cy.visit before each. Okay, we'll close this one down, ignore this, we'll just stop that. Or did I just put that iteration? I think this iteration here, where did I put this? Let me see what it says again. I would expect no commands were issued. Inputs the email address and password. Now sometimes you may run into a scenario where you're overloading Firebase and it thinks you're a malicious user. But let's just close down Cypress. We can rerun this. And I'm hoping we can test this just to make sure we actually have this invalid data. Let's see. cy.visit is not a function. How? Did I add something wrong there? Oh, it's brought in CY from here as an auto update, auto import even. So just be very careful with that. Sometimes the auto import from VS Code, the extensions, can mess up your code. So just be careful. There we go, it's running again. Now I just want to make sure we get that validation that happens after we have bad information. And there we go. We have tested that we have this particular statement that says the password is invalid or the user does not have a password. Cool. So now, how about we just play around with navigating back and forth from the sign up to the login to the sign up. Navigates to the sign up page and back again. So let's do this. Now we can use data test IDs here. Now, I wonder if we have a data test ID set up for sign up. I'm sure we do. Have an account? Interesting. So I don't think we actually have a data test ID set up for that. So how about we do have one. What am I talking about? We have one here. We can use the login. And I guess we could click on that. This is a sign up for the login. Yeah, it's sign up. So we have them. So these data test IDs, let's click on them. So we'll say get data test ID. I remember we set them up, but I couldn't quite recall if we were going to use them universally for React Testing Library and Cypress, but it makes so much sense that we did. So now we can check, once we've navigated, within the body, cy.get div.should contain text that says have an account login. Now on the sign up page. So let's test that. It seems that this, I don't know why that keeps getting pulled in, but I need to make sure VS Code stops doing that. It's frustrating. So let's see if it navigates to the sign up page once it's done those two tests. We can take off that wait statement, but you won't see the dashboard. It's quite nice to see the dashboard. There we are, so we make it over to the sign up. So let's just navigate back. So let's just take this, change this to login. We'll put here, don't have an account login. Right, so that'll go to the sign up page and that'll come back to the login. So let's have a look, login page. Let's just make sure this works, and this is some pretty good testing around the login page. But you can see how fun Cypress is to just write tests for. You get to see all the UI elements, and you can see like certain interactions. It's really cool. And to be honest, the sign up page, we could test for signing the user up, but from the login, you can pretty much just duplicate this. Interesting, should contain don't have an account. Oh, don't have an account login. No, that should be sign up. And if you just run that test, let's have a look, we'll stop that. It was rerunning it, but you can just save whilst this is going on and it should rerun the test. But yeah, maybe you can try do the sign up one. It's very similar, so I'll leave that one because it's near enough duplication of code. Okay, that one failed, which is good. It goes to the sign up. And it didn't go back to the login, which is interesting. So, have an account login, don't have an account, go back. So this should go back, this click. So let's test the sign up. We have a data test ID of login. So I would expect that to actually go back. I wonder why it didn't. Let's open this up. We can go through each step and just see why. Come on. Oh, there we are. Worked. Perfect. All right, so we're done with this one. The next one that I'll leave you with. Actually, should we do the dashboard and then I'll leave you with the profile? Because a lot of this stuff is very similar. And again, I don't want to be holding your hand because you've gone through like nearly 15 hours of tutorials already. And this is where the real learning actually does come in when you process this stuff yourself. So let's go to a new file within Pages called dashboard.test.js. So if we just copy, I'll get the ESLint statement in there because if not, I'll complain. I'll say dashboard here. And then before each is going to be similar. We want to check that everything is validated on the page, but also because I am actually on the sign up, or the login, sorry, we want to test the login and then look at the dashboard. We can actually just copy the form login, which is good. So we can just log in before each iteration. Now you can do this behind the scenes in Cypress, and it's recommended. This actually is seen as an anti-pattern way you type in, but I thought for people who are new to Cypress, this would be very good to see. So at this point, you should be logged in, right? So we can copy this bit of code here where it's looking for the image, and we can just search for Instagram, and that should be the main H1. So if we save that, we can now make our test even smaller. So the before each is doing most of the work here, and then for the iterations, logs the user in and shows the dashboard and does basic checks around the UI. So now we can do some checks in the body of the dashboard, and we can say within, and by the way, you would want to mock all this data within Firebase, but Cypress works much better with RESTful APIs. Firebase is really frustrating to use when it comes to Cypress. So this will be the username in the sidebar, right? The next one, we can just copy these actually. The next one, in terms of text, would be the full name in the sidebar. And then the one after this would be suggestions for you if the user has suggestions. Now you would want to do like an unhappy path just in case the user doesn't have suggestions. But, you know, we can see. You want to do a happy path and unhappy path. So this next one logs the user in and adds a comment to a photo. So once we've logged in, we want to actually get a photo. And do you know how we used a doc ID before to add a comment? I think it was in dashboard.test. Test ID. Here we go, add comment. So let's just steal this. We can then go ahead and put it in here. Close that bracket, and then this should have an attribute, which is a placeholder that says add a comment with 3 dots. And then the type should be amazing photo. And once we're at that point, we can also use this for the submit button. I think that should do it. Add comment, we need to change this, add comment submit, and then just submit. Right, now I don't know if that's going to work, but let's give it a shot. Hopefully it does. So it's logging the user in. It's doing some basic UI checks. Okay, they've all passed, I think. Hopefully. There's no suggestions. Or at least it didn't find any suggestions. So we need to rerun that test. And you can see it's somewhat inefficient going through all the text, but it is very fast. Now, oh, it has a space. That's not good. Stop that test, rerun the dashboard. Okay, so that basic checks around the UI passed. And now, okay, couldn't get that particular one. Should have placeholder, add a comment. So what you can do in here, you can actually inspect. So I'm hoping this has a doc ID, which we can just steal. Now that doc ID looks fine to me, which is this bit, and then we have the accumulation with the add comment to form the data test ID. So where was that? It was here, wasn't it? That's exactly the same as what we just had. I guess I was hoping that would just work. So data test ID. Oh, I'm missing the opening bracket. Silly me. So let's rerun that one more time. I'm hoping that should work. Because I want to see add a comment. Because these are the most crucial user actions. There we go. Does it add a comment? It's struggling. Ooh, interesting. So once it gets to this point in the test body, to have placeholder add a comment. So let's just test that. So you can actually, it's a bit tedious to use a console there. Right, so data test ID equals add a comment. I think that's correct. Oh, what's this? I'm in bracket hell. Right, that has to work. If that doesn't work, the video's ending and Cypress is going in the bin. Let's see. I just want to add a comment. Come on, we can do this. We can do this. Log in. Oh, there we are. I did a comment. Amazing photo. Brilliant. That's exactly what we wanted. So we can even just do, this is how simple it is to just log in and like a photo. So we can just do logs the user in and likes a photo. And watch this. It literally is a copy and paste. And we can just like a photo. We can just switch this out with like photo for the same doc ID. And we can test it. So it should add a comment again. And again, this is why you want mock data, but since we're only testing with Firebase, I think it's fine. Adds a comment, it likes the photo. I mean, we could even stay logged in, to be honest, and leave that iteration in the, like this iteration here, we could just put in here. But it's nice to have like one particular action, or at least two, because we had to have login and then like photo, and also submit. But you see here, we added the comment, we liked the photo, so it's really good. But you can see how we can use Cypress. Now, does this replace React Testing Library? I think they're different things. I feel like I get confidence from both, but maybe I just have to dig a bit deeper into Cypress, because it definitely is powerful. But I feel like it works much better with just REST APIs and not Firebase. So for here, logs the user in and then signs out. Let's do that one. CY, what can we do here? Data test ID equals sign out. Dot click. Let's make sure nothing got included up top. And then you know what? I'm just gonna wait 1 second. Let's say get me a div that should contain text. Don't have an account. Sign up. Back on the login page. And that should be it for the dashboard. Now feel free, I know these, it's like the bare minimum of the tests, because I want you now to take your knowledge of Cypress and React Testing Library and start, buffing up the tests. Because that's when maybe you'll run into scenarios where you ask yourself, okay, well, I want to do X task. How do I do that? Now, maybe I didn't show you how to do it. So what you have to do is you have to go Google, and that's where you'll learn these extra specific skills that you can add to your toolbox. Now, we have an error. Data test ID sign out not found. Interesting. So we need to just make sure we have a sign out. We can sign here, at least search here. Doesn't have a data test ID on sign out, so let's add one. Data test ID equals sign out. And we can test that again, and hopefully it works. Hopefully it found it. The next one, I'll show you how to do a basic profile, but I want you to take what you have learned, but also do some Googling, improve this. If you want to mock Firebase, that'd be fantastic. But I do find this is much better for REST APIs. So if you have a side project or a work project that's using REST APIs, definitely try this out. I think it'll work really well. So here it waits on the page and then it signs out. Perfect. So there we are. We have some tests written. It's going well. And let me just show you how to do the last one, which will be the profile.test. Make sure it's in pages. And we'll say describe, let's see here. What can we steal? We'll steal this. Now I'll keep this one very minimal for you, and I'd love to see this, by the way. Come into the Discord and show me, you know, how you're getting on with this. And this one here is going to just be the profile. It's going to visit, let's say, p/Raphael. And there's a bunch of stuff you could do in here. So I'll give you some tasks like user is logged in, go ahead and like a photo, or follow the user. If you have implemented the pop-up box, that was a task for the application. On a user's page, try test that pop-up box. Now that one would be a killer feature, so if you have that, it'd be great. And one I'll leave you with, just to show you how you can start this one and start doing your own tests around this, goes to a profile page and validates the UI. So what would you do here? You do cy.get body.within. You know, it's pretty simple stuff. And now Cypress can go much more advanced than this. This is, you know, some really basic tests that we're doing, but it shows how we can use it. So what do we expect to see on the UI of the profile page of Raphael? Well, we expect the username, which is Raphael. We expect his full name, which I can't spell, so I'm just going to have to paste it in here. We expect him to have 5 photos, I believe it was, 3 followers. But you can see how these are fairly similar to what we asserted against in React Testing Library. And that is mainly because we were working with integration tests within React Testing Library. And yes, you can do end-to-end. We are kind of doing some end-to-end where we're logging in. Now this one here is not an end-to-end test, but when you do the login, you check the profile, you leave images, you leave likes on images, you comment, and then you sign out. In my view, that's end-to-end. That's the journey for a particular user. End-to-end testing is just the journey, and that's pretty much it. Integration, it could be a profile page and we're using a bunch of different components and we're integrating them all together to create a page. So yeah, I'll leave you with this test, and this should be the last one really, because I want you to use the knowledge that you have learned and go ahead and apply it. That's where the real learning comes in. If someone said to me, how do you learn programming? I'd say just program. You can see here, should contain 3 photos, followers. Yeah, so the best advice I can give you is how do you get good at programming, or how do you learn programming, is, you know, just a program. It's nice following tutorials. Whoa, it works, perfect. But yeah, it's nice following tutorials, but at some point you just got to do this stuff on your own and, you know, learn from other people, like your teammates, open source, read articles, just pick bits from various different sources. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Cypress test. You got these 3, they work well. They should get you up and going. And I'll just hit save on this, and then we'll have a little chat, and that should be it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this series, please do let me know on YouTube. The likes and subscribing really do help, and it helps validate that people are actually learning stuff. And I just want to personally thank you for purchasing this, because obviously these do take a long time to do, and they're not easy to do. They're huge applications with lots of moving parts, and doing the tests is just a way. Well, the testing for React testing library, Cypress, and the responsiveness was something I wanted to try to see if people were getting enough value out of these courses that they would purchase. And I'm never going to go full paid model, a full paid model, just because I like giving out education, and free education is one thing I'm a huge advocate for. Although it does help, because obviously there's other stuff I could be doing with my time, but I really do enjoy doing these. It helps with getting someone to like do the thumbnails, the rendering, the cutting the videos, because with 15 hours of going recordings, like it takes me like maybe a week to go through all that and just make sure everything's fine. So yeah, it's really helpful, and it really does help that you did purchase this, and I really do appreciate it. So if there's anything I can do to help, I am in the Discord, the Cognitive Surge Discord. There is also my Twitter account where you can message me. I may not get back to you immediately, because I do get quite a few messages, but I do get back to everybody. And the YouTube comments, I respond to every comment. So like I said, if there's anything I can do to help, whether it be getting your first job, what tech you should learn, what we should build next as a community, that would be awesome. So please do like, subscribe, and let me know what you thought of this model where you build the app and then there's a paid version on top. So it's the best of both worlds, I think. And I thought the pricing was relatively fair. So let me know what you thought about the pricing. It's all new stuff to me. And yeah, I just want to do the best I can to help you. And yeah, I like I said, I just really appreciate you actually paying for this, because now I can speed up the videos, and hopefully if we get enough people purchasing, we can get someone to help out with all the rendering and cutting of the videos. And like any money I make from this will be going towards a new Mac, so I don't have to pause the video every 20 minutes because the fans are overheating. So yeah, like I'm massively grateful. I wish you the best. It'd be good to just get together, communicate. Maybe we'll do a live stream at some point with everyone, and just see where everyone's at, where they're working, are they trying to find a job, what sort of tech they're learning. I think that'd be pretty cool. So I wish you the best, and until next time, until the next big clone, and let me know what you want to see in the comments on YouTube. Let me know what sort of clone you want to see next. This is it. This is the final bit of the Instagram puzzle. So yeah, massive thanks again for not only watching but purchasing this. Take care, and I wish you all the best. Peace out.